That day, my sister passed away. Before she left, she held my hand, assuring me, Yuan, just endure for one more year, and I will definitely take you out of this hell. She promised to come back for me, but now she is returned as a cold corpse. Just then, the man in the green coat suddenly approached her and spoke words of encouragement. Yuan, your sister is gone. Now only you can inherit our family's abilities. From now on, please continue to manage all affairs of the Pelliers family, for your uncle, and for the rest of the family. She didn't respond, her eyes still brimming with tears, her heart choked with a lingering sorrow as she thought to herself, if I had known it would turn out like this, why didn't you take me with you, sister? Just as someone pushed the door open and stepped in, someone asked, things will probably be a bit difficult from now on, won't they? He froze, turned slightly, his eyes filled with astonishment, and exclaimed, Oh my, how tus campagne, your grace, you came all the way here? He immediately replied, Batus Pellier.
After all, the person you sent was just someone faking death. You must have hidden the real person very well, haven't you? Because of your lies, the Grand Prince is furious. If you still don't hand over the real person, you know what the consequences will be. Count Pellies protested, his face red with anger. No, that girl won't do. Marquis Campagny immediately cut him off. Try saying that in front of the Grand Prince. Then, from the beginning, you should have sent the real person. I don't know if you people are truly foolish or just thick-skinned. His face flushed crimson, trembling with rage. He thought to himself, damn it, I need that girl's healing power to keep making money. Seeing Marquis Campagny about to step towards Yuan, he immediately rushed forward a step, his heart tightening with unease. Then he shouted in protest, No, that girl is my elder brother's last bloodline. If we lose her, this family is ruined. No! Suddenly, a sword blocked him. Marquis Campagny looked at her and spoke, Lady Yuan Pellies. Count Pellies still craned his neck to object. No, I said it's not her. Ignoring him, Marquis Campagny looked at her and declared, You will be the next bride of the deposed prince.
It was unknown how much time had passed since that event. The blond young man crossed his arms over his chest, sneering, said, The position of the deposed crown princess truly holds an immense allure, to the point where those crazy rats from House Pellies are flocking here again. Yuan didn't respond, only falling silent for a beat, letting a silent stream of thoughts rise within her. I am standing where my sister lost her life, in front of the man who was once my sister's husband. No, perhaps he was the one who destroyed her, and I have to treat him. Having finished her silent thoughts, she suddenly pulled down her shawl and somewhat shyly suggested, Please, take it off, take it off. He frowned and asked again, Do you know what you're doing? Her face flushed. She trembled as she replied, I know, so please take it off. Hearing this, he helplessly questioned, Trembling like that, what can you possibly do? Well then, I'll take it off first.
Yuan said nothing, then unexpectedly leaned in, actively reaching towards him. In that heart-stopping moment, she gently pressed a kiss onto his lips, as if touching and then dissolving into his breath. The fleeting touch was enough to startle him, his eyes widening before he could react. Then, with only the lingering warmth of the kiss between them, she looked him straight in the eye and frankly declared, I am not a timid mouse. I am merely showing your highness my worth. As soon as he heard her finish speaking, his expression darkened. Without a word of warning, he abruptly pushed her onto the bed, the decisive movement making the very air freeze. Yet Yuan showed no fear. She lay there, her gaze calm and steady on him, as if prepared for everything, a thought quietly echoing in her mind. Yes, this humiliation is nothing compared to the harsh winter of 10 years ago. 10 years ago, winter at Count Pellies' mansion was warm. A brown-haired maid, her eyes crinkling in a smile, asked, Lady Yuan, are you that happy? She smiled joyfully and confirmed, Of course, because you said you would come find me. Joy filled the heart of a child, awaiting a loved one's return.
A perfect family. This winter, the whole family will drink eggnog together and even play with dolls. Thinking this, Yuan giggled to herself, wondering, I wonder if she likes dolls. I wish she would come quickly. Unexpectedly, before her words could even finish, the brown-haired maid suddenly pushed the door open and announced, Miss, the Count and Countess have arrived. As soon as Yuan heard her speak, at that very moment, the porcelain doll in her hand slipped, fell to the floor, and shattered into pieces, like a cruel omen in that heartbreaking moment. Although she had always longed for her sister to return to her side, when actually faced with her, Yuan subtly recoiled, timidly hiding behind the maid. Seeing this, the woman gently took off her hood, revealing a face that was once so familiar it ached her heart, then slowly walked towards her. After that, she softly asked, her gentle voice trembling slightly, You are Yuan, aren't you? I'm sorry I came alone. I am Louise, your sister, Yuan. And then I met a new family.
My sister Louise, whom I had always longed for, along with my uncle's family, who had arbitrarily replaced my parents' position, and then arbitrarily declared that from now on, we are a family. My uncle said he would come to take care of us, but as soon as he arrived, he ransacked my parents' bedroom, and my father's study was also rummaged through. Finally, even the old servants were replaced. The beautiful mansion that once belonged to my parents gradually began to reflect the uncle's influence. Someone suddenly called out, "Hey,
A mere servant girl wanting to wear a dress? It turns out this arrogant girl is Regina, Yuan and Louise's cousin." Louise angrily demanded, "Give it back. That's what Mother left for Yuan." No sooner had she finished speaking than someone suddenly stepped forward and slapped her across the face. Then that person raised a fist, scowling and threatening. "Don't be insolent, or do you want another beating?" It turned out this domineering fellow was Frederick, Regina's older brother. Regina smirked and suggested, "Let's go, brother. We don't have time to play with these orphans." Hearing this, Yuan couldn't help but sob bitterly. "Wah, Mother!" Louise quickly tried to comfort her. "Yuan, don't be scared. Don't cry. Come here with me." Louise choked up, her heart trembling with fear, softly asked, "Sister, aren't you angry?"
She looked at her for a long time, then gently replied, her voice soft yet full of love, "Of course, but I hate it more when you're hurt or sad." Saying this, she gave her familiar eye smile. Then she came forward and hugged her tightly, as if to make up for all the years of separation, squeezing her while exclaiming, "Oh my dear sister. Yuan, I will always be by your side. You know I love you, right?" Yuan closed her eyes and silently replied in her heart, "Yes, I know." Returning to reality, the Grand Prince suddenly asked, "Does being close to me disgust you so much?" With tears welling up, she choked out, "No." Next, she silently continued in her heart, "When I heard you left home to get married, or when you returned home in that condition, I never blamed you." Then she explained in a low voice, "This is also a type of remedy from the Peleus family. Therefore, no matter how tragic it gets, I will endure to the very end to uncover the truth, the reason why you had to die in this place. So please rest assured, Louise."
A moment later, panting, the first prince sneered, "You're quite resilient, aren't you? So let's do more. Do you want me to continue?" Yuan blushed and pleaded, "Please, let me try, please." As he took her hand, he smirked with amusement, "Though I don't know what trick you're trying to pull. All right, go ahead and try." Hearing this, she immediately took out a vial of medicine, then softly offered, "Please take it." He chuckled mockingly, "Please take it. Poison? Do you think that can kill me? It seems you'll have to try harder." As she fed him the medicine, she gently reassured him, "You'll be fine soon." No sooner had Yuan finished speaking than a sudden burst of light erupted, engulfing both of them, making him momentarily sway, feeling as if everything became hazy. In that light, he slowly closed his eyes, his voice hoarse with astonishment. "What the hell is this?" And then he drifted into a dream-like state.
Seeing her goal accomplished, Yuan turned her face away, closed her eyes, then suddenly covered her face with her hands, screaming in pain. Rewinding time at a Pelees mansion. As the room door opened, Yuan quickly stepped in. Before her was a lady with her hand on her head, frowning, looking very uncomfortable. Sensing someone approaching, she looked up and asked irritably, "Why are you only just arriving now?" Count Pelees rubbed his hands apologetically, laughing, "Haha, I apologize, my assistant is not feeling well today." She interrupted irritably, "Don't talk so much, examine me. I feel like there are needles pricking my head." He quickly took something from his coat pocket and replied with a smile, "If Madam uses the Pelees family's medicine, it will quickly subside. Assistant, quickly massage the Madam." Yuan nodded, bowing slightly for permission. "Pardon me, Madam." As he took the medicine from the bottle, Count Pelees thought to himself, what they call medicine is actually just plain water, only a bit more bitter. The real power lies elsewhere, temporarily absorbing others' pain through physical contact, a mysterious ability to bear the pain for others. Currently, only Yuan Pelees in the Pelees family possesses this ability. She placed her hand on her head, her eyes wide with surprise. "Heavens, the Pelees family's medicine is truly amazing. My mind feels so clear. The headache is gone."
The guests present immediately jostled each other, demanding, "Me too, examine me first, I'm in a hurry. Oh my God, I'm about to die. Give me the medicine from the Pelees family, just a few drops, mix it quickly." An elderly lady on the verge of death from a chronic illness, a man whose leg was almost crushed in a carriage accident, even a person whose shoulder was nearly severed by a monster hunter's arrow. Seeing the nobles scrambling for the bottle of plain water, Count Pelees was overjoyed, grinning widely. "Now, everyone, keep order. The only one who can save them is Yuan Pelees. he emphasized. Furthermore, everyone remember, these are special guests. Precious medicine is only for precious people. Please keep it a secret. Do you all understand what I mean? And the one who bears all the pain is also Yuan. Placing a hand on her shoulder, Count Peleis lowered his voice and requested, Yuan, come on, let's go. We still have duties to complete. Only Yuan Peleis can do it. He didn't care if she wanted to or not, only focusing on immediate benefits. For example, just consider this a practice session for your sister. Sitting down, looking at the bloodstains spreading on the floor, Yuan thought to herself, this is enough proof for the wedding night. The outcast, the monster prince clad Euphrates, with horrible scars covering half his body, just looking at him was chilling. Did he torment himself to soothe his physical pain?
The proof of the wedding night was considered complete, but what about the pool of blood on the floor? Don't be weak, Yuan. He might be the one who killed your sister. You must be strong. The next morning, the blonde man walked towards Clad's room, coincidentally overhearing the servants' conversation. Oh my, what happened? Did you hear the noise last night? Of course, it was so obvious. It turned out that even this dark manor had stars shining upon it. They never even dreamed that His Highness already had a ninth wife. As he reached Clad's door, Yuan opened it, held up a blood-stained cloth for him to see, and calmly asked, this should be enough, right? Proof of the wedding night. She thought to herself, thanks to this proof, from today onwards I will become the abandoned crown princess. Even if I become a monster bride, I will not return to the Peleis house, no matter what I have to do. When did I fall asleep? He woke up feeling unusually refreshed, having forgotten all pain throughout the night. As he covered his face with his hand, Clad involuntarily reminisced. Yuan's face was flushed with embarrassment when she looked at him last night. Then he suddenly called out, Butler! The butler broke out in a cold sweat and respectfully replied, Did you call for me, Your Highness? He turned his head and irritably asked, Old man, why is your face so red? The butler slightly bowed his head. No, it's nothing, Your Highness. He continued to interrogate. Explain, what is this about? The butler's eyes widened in confusion. Explain what, Your Highness? He immediately replied, Proof of the wedding night. Hearing that, the butler lightly cleared his throat and said, Last night, the two of you slept in the same room. The proof has been sent to the royal family, and a confirmation letter will be sent here soon. Clad's eyes widened in shock. What?
Gently touching the leaves, Yuan sighed to herself, thinking that there really wasn't a single flower. If it were properly cared for, this place would surely be much more beautiful. Just then, a voice suddenly called out, Hey! Startled, she heard her name being called and quickly turned her head towards the sound, only to find Clad before her. With his arms crossed over his chest, he coldly asked, You have something to say to me, don't you? She thought in silence for a moment, then spoke up to remind him, You slept well last night thanks to me, don't you remember? He reminded her in a low voice, Don't play games, I'm not that kind of person. She calmly replied, Then I'll remind you again.
Clad didn't answer, only frowned slightly, staring at her for a moment before suggesting, Come up here. As she took a step, Yuan thought to herself, Even though I was a bit impulsive then, the matter of my healing ability absolutely cannot be revealed. Once he knows, he will also turn into a devil like his master, because he himself is suffering from pain. I must both hide this ability and prove my worth to them. Even though I know it's not entirely possible, I mustn't lose heart. The wedding night is over, and this relationship has been acknowledged by the imperial family. I have every right to live in this mansion. Moreover, it's very possible that he is the murderer of my sister. The one who must leave is not me, but him, the potential culprit. Seeing Yuan's silence, Cloud asked curiously, What's wrong? Are you regretting it? With that face, how could I have done that last night? Hearing his question, she couldn't help but be puzzled, her eyes wide as she stared at him intently. Seeing this, he could only lower his head helplessly, then reminded her in a loud voice, You said you would help me remember what happened. Yuan, startled, replied, Yes, yes. A moment later, as she poured tea into a cup, Yuan thought to herself, sweating, He's not as angry as I thought, even though he looks like he's about to explode. Then she gently picked up the teacup and offered it with an awkward smile. Please, sir, have some. Suddenly remembering something, Claude asked curiously, That's right, yesterday you also made me drink something. I remember it very clearly. Yuan immediately replied, Yes, I am from the Peleis family. I only prescribe medicine according to symptoms. He frowned sarcastically. Drink this and your memory will just come back.
Turning her head to look at Clad, Yuan asked with concern, I heard that every night you were plunged into agony, but tonight, even though it's already so dark, you still look clear-headed. The unsaid pain brings forth even hidden desires, so the reason you can sleep so soundly is because you've poured it all into me, isn't it? Hearing that, Clad immediately dismissed it. Don't talk nonsense. As Yuan offered the teacup, she calmly suggested, This is proof. Please try drinking it. Clad silently bowed his head in thought, then reluctantly accepted the teacup from Yuan, grumbling, I'm not drinking this because I believe you, but merely to verify it. After that, Clad drank the teacup dry, then raised his head high and announced, "There, I've finished drinking it. What now?" No sooner had Clad finished speaking than Yuan, without a word, unexpectedly leaned in and placed a light kiss on his cheek. Then she gently closed her eyes and embraced the sudden onset of pain. Seeing that, Clad recoiled in surprise and asked, "This is—" Yuan blushed and whispered, "Do you remember now? This is my therapy. The medicine, combined with the warmth of human intimacy, that is the prescription I give. You must be feeling the effects now. This time, please be sure to remember." Clad asked in astonishment, "What?" Perhaps due to the overwhelming pain, Yuan was speechless and wearily collapsed onto the bed. Her whole body trembled incessantly. Each pang of pain felt like tearing her flesh apart. She quickly buried her face in the bedsheet, clutching the fabric tightly. Then, unable to restrain herself, she let out a desperate scream. Beside her, Clad lay peacefully asleep, completely unaware. Yuan, trying to suppress the pain, glanced at him, thinking to herself. It was obvious that he wouldn't remember what happened last night. To alleviate the terrible pain that made me want to destroy myself, I had made him fall asleep as I wished. Then I took his blood from the floor to fabricate evidence for the wedding night. It was just helping him sleep peacefully for one night. It wasn't a big deal. Oh, but why does it hurt this much? But I have to endure it, because I absolutely cannot turn back now. Soon, morning broke. The servants were engrossed in gossip. It seems the lady didn't just wear him out once. The two of them are truly in love, but why, I wonder? They must be very compatible. Every night they make me blush to death. I saw everything clearly. The two of them were giggling by the door all night.
Clad inside heard everything. While rubbing his face, he wondered to himself, I don't remember anything from last night. No pain, no nightmares. As for medicine, let's not even talk about it. But is human warmth also considered a healing therapy? The pain came, revealing even his buried desires. Did you sleep well because you unloaded everything onto me? What trick did she play to make me forget such a fiercely passionate night that everyone knows about? Just then, he unconsciously looked out the window and saw Yuan bustling about somewhere, which made him a little curious, so he quickly asked, "Why does she look so busy?" Mr. Gustav replied, "He said he wants to tend to the garden." Hearing that, he said, "That can be done by the servants." He immediately replied, "Yes." He scoffed. "Yes? What kind of butler are you?" He gave a forced smile and apologized. "I apologize." No sooner had he finished speaking, coincidentally, Yuan suddenly turned her head and looked upstairs. He couldn't help but be stunned, frozen for a moment. After that, he quickly reached out and pulled the curtains shut. Then, with his ears burning red, he shyly suggested, "Just say I'm sleeping." Mr. Gustav asked in surprise, "Pardon me?" He lowered his voice and demanded, "Get out." He bowed his head and quietly backed away, but his mind was still full of questions. Tell whom? At first glance, the Pelleas family mansion still looked the same as it did when Jorn Pelleas left. Luxurious furniture filled the hallways, and they were always kept immaculately clean. But hidden within, many things had become very different. Someone suddenly spoke up, questioning, "Do you think I would have come all this way if things weren't serious?"
My father now refuses to take any medicine unless it's from the Pelleas family. What do you expect me to do? I've tried to be understanding because I know he hasn't been well. But look at the Count's face now. He looks incredibly healthy. Are you sure he was just sick? The woman with her hair in a bun irritably questioned, "And what is this about? You stopped sending us our weekly medicine supplies yesterday." The black-haired man indignantly demanded, "I heard you even dismissed the servant we sent." "Do I really have to come all the way here myself?" The brown-haired man angrily continued. "My son had a rather serious fall from his horse and needed 8 stitches on his face, and you kept all the doors shut that entire time. What were you doing? Do you know how much of our family's gold and silver we've poured into the Pelleas family? What about the assets we've invested? You should at least make that money worthwhile, Count." Raising both hands in front of him, Count Pellier chuckled soothingly. Now, everyone calm down. Haven't I tried my best?" "I only have one body, yet the Academy keeps dragging me into festivals and conferences, and the royal family keeps demanding I formulate cheaper medicine for the common people. Even 10 bodies wouldn't be enough. It's only natural I'd fall ill, isn't it? These past few days, I barely even have time to eat. Is it easy to make medicine? Rare ingredients have to be collected from distant mountains and rivers, and then carefully preserved to prevent spoilage. Even if you pour a mountain of gold into it, the transportation costs alone are already enormous. You know that, don't you?" The black-haired man crossed his arms over his chest, frowned slightly, and said with a hint of hesitation, Even so." Count Pellier tilted his head slightly, feigning distress, brought a hand up to lightly dab the corner of his eye, as if on the verge of tears, his shoulders trembling slightly. His voice choked with drama, he continued. "The north is dangerous with many monsters, even though it has rare herbs. The west is nothing but desert, so only the east and south are viable. But the road tolls there are terribly expensive, and I can't openly declare that I bring those rare medicines into the capital just to serve special guests, can I?
If rumors spread that the Pelleas family is offering special privileges, will the royal court stand by idly? Will the wealthy commoners sit still without saying anything? Do you know I also have a ton of things to worry about? Fearing he would continue to complain, the black-haired man quickly reached out and said, "Anyway, I agree that it happened too suddenly. That's all we wanted to say. We didn't come here to blame you, Count." He had only waited for that moment, then immediately curved his eyes into a smile, as if his joy couldn't be hidden, and replied, "Of course, I understand everyone's concerns. If you trust me and are willing to wait a little longer, I will certainly inform everyone again. But please, everyone, go home for today." That hateful girl, she stormed off right in front of so many people and hasn't contacted us even once. Do you know where she went? That cursed black manor, Loxenhart? How can she survive marrying that monster prince who has fallen on hard times from some poor remote place? Countess Pelleas frowned in dissatisfaction, exclaiming, 3 days have passed. Nothing could disgrace this family more than this. Count Pelleas declared, fuming, "Just bring that girl back and I will certainly make her pay for this." Frederick expressed indifferently, "Who cares? I never liked that girl anyway. Everything is going exactly as planned."
Even if he's just a prince who has fallen on hard times, he's still of royal lineage, and Loxenhart Manor must be his, right? If that girl is lucky, we can still connect with the royal family, can't we, Regina? Upon hearing these words, his face involuntarily darkened with anger. He thought to himself, that foolish boy can still laugh as if it has nothing to do with him. Does he know anything about the power that girl holds? We are temporarily using the excuse that the girl is resting to refuse visitors. But what if the girl never returns? Does he know what kind of wrath we will face from the powerful families who have waited for years to receive special treatment? Just thinking about that, Count Pelleas' entire body broke out in a cold sweat, his face turned pale, and his spine suddenly went cold from the sudden onset of fear. Countess Pelleas gently touched her still annoyed face and let out a soft, weary sigh, then thought aloud, "Well, at least we don't have to worry about the girl's dowry anymore. Even if she is a noble, just thinking about having to cede land to her makes me sick." Regina crossed her arms over her chest, a flicker of contempt in her eyes, then let out a disdainful snort. That girl has never even been introduced to the public. We just need to pretend she doesn't exist.
The old woman calmly asked, "What if the girl brings back a piece of land as a dowry? Wouldn't that be wonderful? The third son of Batuk Trelawney has liked Yuan for a while now, you know." Hearing this, she was extremely astonished and quickly questioned, "When did that wealthy Batuk Trelawney meet the girl? Why are we only hearing about this now?" The old woman calmly reasoned. He probably saw her when he visited and then asked one of the maids. Hearing this, Batuk Pelleas could no longer restrain himself and immediately shouted, "Oh my God, will you people just shut up?" Afterwards, he couldn't help but indignantly think to himself, "You want to marry the girl off? She's the goose that lays the golden eggs." Seeing this, Frederick slightly raised an eyebrow and asked suspiciously, "Father, what's wrong with you? I thought you would be the happiest of that girl left. But wait, don't tell me you were serious when you begged us not to let her leave that night." He gritted his teeth and asserted, "That's not it." Hearing this, he let out a slight sound of skepticism. New Batuk Pelleas smiled, waving her hand, and asked, "Good heavens, what exactly are we arguing about? Is all this fuss because of that girl Yuan?"
Where could the girl go? Married to that monster of a husband, she's probably being dragged through the snow right now. That weak girl might even turn her carriage around and flee out of fear. A few days later, seeing Count Pelleas languishing in bed made Countess Pelleas impatiently ask, "Just lying there won't solve the problem, husband. I've even received letters asking if Pelleas has completely shut down." He sighed wearily. "Oh, my head." Seeing him so distraught over Yuan's departure, Regina immediately made a suggestion. "Father, I want to help with the business in place of that crow. I'll do better than that weakling. I'm serious. My handwriting is much prettier than hers. Father, father, father." Seeing this, Countess Pelleas quickly stepped forward to stop her. "Lower your voice, child." She placed her hand on her chest and said discontentedly, "Mother, listen to me. Yuan is gone, so the research assistant position is still vacant, isn't it? I personally heard Father say that girl was very important to our family's business, so why was it her and not me, your daughter? It should have been me helping Father. From the beginning, the only reason the son of Count Trelawney paid attention to Yuan was because she kept following Father around." Just then, Count Pelleas suddenly growled, ordering, "Get out, Regina." She angrily turned her head and called out, "Father!" He continued to order, "Get out." Hearing this, she furrowed her brows tightly. Then she left in a fit of pique, thinking to herself, "That crow Yuan is no longer here. Everything will be mine now." Just then, a brown-haired maid suddenly called out, "My lady." Regina irritably asked back, "What is it? Why are you in here?" She hesitantly replied, It's just that there's a letter from Count Trelawney, and I thought it was very important, so I brought it to you."
Hearing this, she quickly snatched the letter and said, "I'll take it. You may leave now." The other girl immediately replied, "Yes, ma'am." A moment later, upon opening the letter, Regina couldn't help but be startled and stunned, thinking to herself, "A marriage proposal for Yuan? Almost. If Yuan accepted, they even planned to offer a piece of land as part of the wedding. Luckily, Yuan isn't here. If Mother saw this letter, she would lose her mind. And not just Mother, Father would be captivated by it too. That girl received a marriage proposal even before her debut. Why her and not me? No, I just need to make it mine. I'll write a reply. All I need to do is twist the story a little, making people believe the proposal was sent to me. The young lady of the Pelleas family? If everyone believes that a prestigious young lady received a marriage proposal even before her debut, and if I attend the debut ball at the Royal Palace with Dracov Trelawney as my dance partner, then even Father will have to acknowledge me. The glory will be mine." As Clad lay on the bed, covered head to toe with a blanket, a voice suddenly called out, "Clad, Clad, don't do that. You know I'm coming today." He replied in a low voice, "Lancelot Rev." Lancelot Rev's smile, playfully chiding. "What is this, Clad Euphorus? You invite someone over, and then you act like this?" It turned out to be Lancelot Rev, the second son of the Marquis Rev family and Clad's childhood friend. Clad stated in a low voice, "I didn't invite you. Don't just come and go as you please." Lancelot Rev grinned, his eyes crinkling, and replied, "If you're getting a new wife, you should have known that Eddie would send me to check things out." The servants all chattered excitedly. It had been a long time since the mansion was this lively. Lancelot Rev continued, "Who is your ninth wife? Some noble lady?" Eddie made up a story that she snuck in to avenge her sister, said she'd run away as soon as she got scared. "But what a surprise, what a surprise. I heard you two spent your first night together, huh? And she looks quite radiant, too. Since when did you stop being so cold and start embracing women? Had fun last night, didn't you? That's what I heard. Well, of course, my cousin and my friend wouldn't just lie there like dead fish in bed, would they?" Clad frowned irritably, warning, "Watch your mouth."
Lancelot didn't stay silent, but continued to ramble. He recounted that he had spent his first night with his wife, and she hadn't run away. She was sent by the royal family and wasn't even dead yet. The other person asked suspiciously, "What are you trying to say?" Lancelot replied with a smile, "Your face looks completely different, you know. I guess that only happens when you meet someone who truly suits you, the so-called power of love." The other person lowered their voice and asked again, "Love? I don't love anyone. You know that, right?" Hearing this, Lancelot could only laugh helplessly and thought to himself, "Well, that's it then." The other person bluntly suggested, "If you're done talking, then go home." Lancelot groaned.
As he walked away, Lancelot rubbed his head and thought to himself, "I always ruin the atmosphere with just one slip of the tongue. Judging by the reaction, the first night definitely happened. His Highness is always too hasty." Eddie Rev, the eldest son of the Marquis Rev family, was the type of person who worried too much. If his brother found out about this, he would surely fly into a rage. Perhaps I should tell him about the Pelleas family frantically trying to bring the bride back. Just as he finished his thoughts, Lancelot's gaze suddenly stopped because he caught sight of Yuan standing nearby. In the moment he witnessed her breathtakingly beautiful face with his own eyes, he couldn't help but be stunned. A fleeting moment of bewilderment flashed in his eyes, and then he quietly thought to himself, with a mix of confusion and vague emotion, how could that guy act so coldly towards such a beautiful person? On winter days colder than usual, I dreamed again of the first day I set foot in this mansion. Someone bluntly suggested, "Excuse me, young lady, but I think you should return to your family."
Yuan couldn't help but wonder why. The blond man immediately reminded him, "You must know the rumors about Prince Clad, but His Highness is not a monster or a debauchee. He merely suffers from an illness. He is not suitable to have a partner by his side." Hearing this, Yuan felt a little disheartened, thinking, "Go back?" He quickly made a suggestion. "It's best to wait until the royal family issues further instructions." She didn't reply but continued to think, "But exactly where would I be returning to?" Then she suddenly remembered her uncle who always wanted to exploit her special abilities to gain illicit profits from sick nobles. This made her extremely fearful, and she quickly asserted, "And what if I say I won't? I won't go back. I will wait here until my husband comes to pick me up himself." Faced with her extremely firm attitude, he could only bow and take his leave. "Then I shall withdraw, my lady." She didn't know how much time had passed. As she wrapped her arms around herself, Yuan shivered. "It's so cold. Is this how my sister died? Silently waiting for the gates of this black manor to open? But I won't change my mind. I won't go back to that place. If I am forced to return, I would rather rest peacefully under the snow with my sister and parents." Seeing Yuan, despite her whole body constantly trembling from the cold, stubbornly waiting there, made the brown-haired maid and Mr. Gustav feel worried. Meanwhile, Clad covered his eyes with his hand and indifferently asked, "Does she want to be let in? Is Rev out of his mind?"
Placing a hand over his chest, Rev apologized. "Forgive me, Your Highness. Before this, we have only ever seen women leave on their own. We have never seen anything like this. Including the wedding night, she has lasted 4 days already." Mr. Gustav continued worriedly,
I truly didn't think she would still be alive. The maids were terrified and dared not go near to check. They were afraid they would find a skeleton. Clad suddenly sat up, thinking with a hint of worry. Now even the servants are changing their tune and begging. Then he asked aloud, "All right, so what will the newspapers write about this time? The 9 brides of the mad prince, some dead, some missing, some fled? How long must we turn a blind eye to his brutality? Massacre parties taking place in the Black Manor or something like that?" Rev lowered his gaze slightly and replied, "That is not your highness's fault." Clad asked in a low voice, "Who said it was my fault?" With that he walked over to the window and looked outside, where a carriage was parked. Then he couldn't help but wonder to himself, "If you didn't want to return, then die somewhere else. Why leave a corpse in front of my manor gate?"
It seems I must force her to leave. Then he called out, "Gustav, send all the servants to my room. Lock the mansion gates tightly. Don't let even a single mouse sneak in. And Rav, have them start searching for the 10th wife." Saying this, he took out a few pills. As he swallowed them, he indifferently made a suggestion. "Perhaps we should prepare a coffin or divorce papers beforehand, so that the 10th wife can at least make her own choice." Hearing Clad say that, Rev couldn't help but ask with concern, "Don't you want to try it just once? You might not live in honor, but you could still live in happiness." He irritably growled, asking reproachfully, "That phrase again? Is that what your uncle calls happiness? Embracing women, raising children, laughing and talking with one's wife, and pretending to be a decent father? Look straight at me, Marquis. Who would want a husband like me? Who would want a father like me?" At the same time, Yuan was deep in thought, musing, "I know Sister Louise won't be able to live much longer."
Even after being treated in the South for over a decade and trying every medicine I concocted, struggling through the side effects of the drugs, the hereditary disease of the Pelleas family had never spared anyone. It spared my father, but not my sister Louise. But I don't know if she truly left in the way she chose. I should have asked, what were her last moments like? Were you a good husband to her? As Yuan finished her thoughts, the door suddenly burst open. The person who appeared in the doorway was none other than the one she had been longing for, Clad. Looking straight into his eyes, she silently wondered, was he a monster?
After a moment of intensely staring at each other in silence, Clad suddenly got into the car with a decisive look. He slowly leaned forward, bringing his face close to hers. Just as their lips were about to touch, Yuan immediately pushed him away and loudly declared, "I'm not going home." Hearing her say that, he couldn't help but be surprised, staring at her for a moment. She spoke choked with emotion, her voice earnest, as if clinging to a last ray of hope. "Please, don't abandon me like this." At that moment, a vague fear arose within her, making her silently wonder, "Did you kill Louise?" Grabbing his shirt and pleading tearfully, "Please," she also silently implored, "Please tell me," then earnestly begged, her voice trembling in utter loneliness, "Don't leave me alone." Amidst that tumultuous wave of emotions, Yuan silently questioned herself, "Are you my enemy or my family? I should have asked that."
The next day, in the quiet space of the castle, Yuan slowly opened her eyes and woke up after a night of fainting from exhaustion and a bone-chilling cold. Her body still felt heavy, her eyelids trembled slightly. She looked up at the ceiling for a long time, as if needing time to realize she was still alive. A warm breath escaped into the air, and she softly whispered, "It's too hot." Hearing her voice, the brown-haired maid quickly turned around, her face immediately lighting up. Her eyes shone with genuine relief and joy. Then she smiled with concern and asked, "Milady, you're awake? You must have been very tired last night, weren't you?" Yuan chuckled and remarked, "Henna, this room is too warm now. This mansion doesn't have firewood to spare for burning carelessly." Henna just blinked innocently at that, then gently reassured her, "It's all right. I just brought some firewood from my own room." Hearing that, the young lady said with a touch of concern, "Then Henna and everyone else will get cold."
She calmly chuckled and replied, "We've all agreed. Perhaps the young lady will give us a child to play with in this Pelleas manor. This little bit of care is nothing." Hearing Hina say that made Yuan feel embarrassed. Her face flushed and she smiled gratefully. "Thank you, but..." Then she suddenly paused, smiled faintly, and thought to herself, "Even though I knew it beforehand, I'm still deceiving everyone. There are rumors that all the women who were involved with the Crown Prince either died tragically or fled. Not just those ladies, but anyone who sets foot in the Black Manor must endure that bone-chilling cold." But right at that moment, Hina suddenly asked curiously, "Is His Highness not dining with the young lady today? Are the two of you not planning to spend the night together? I feel uneasy leaving the young lady in the living room like this." Yuan didn't answer immediately, but secretly assessed in her heart, "She's truly thoughtful. Then can I hear about Louise's story?" She then quickly asked, Miss Hina? I mean, my predecessor?"
Hina lowered her eyes, giving an awkward smile as she replied, About that.
Oh, wait a moment. Monica told me to fetch some firewood. I'll be right back. Canaria will help the young lady clean up. With that, Hina quickly left. Her somewhat suspicious reaction made Yuan feel doubtful. Afterward, despite searching through dozens of rooms in this black manor, she still couldn't find any trace of Louise or the previous ladies. How can I understand everything here? I really don't know what to do, Louise. Just do what you can, Yuan. She suddenly remembered the words Louise had told her long ago, making her feel nostalgic. Just make yourself indispensable, and they won't be able to kick you out of here. You're right. No need to rush. We'll have plenty of time to figure everything out. Just stay calm and become the person this mention needs. What's there to worry about? I've done well all these years. The next day, as he looked at the ledger in his hand, Mr. Gustav's eyes widened in surprise as he remarked, "That's truly impressive. It seems I have nothing left to do. I didn't expect the lady to be so skilled at managing ledgers." Yuan didn't reply immediately, but gently closed her eyes, smiling faintly as she thought to herself, "It's because I'm good at calculations that I've been buried in ledgers for my aunt for the past 10 years. Countess Pellier smirked wickedly and declared, "Fire all the servants who witnessed that immediately. It seems I've become better than others my age." Then she gently remarked, "I hear you single-handedly manage everything in the mansion, and the previous ledgers were also meticulously kept. It's truly clear that you are a dedicated person. You must have worked very hard during this time, haven't you?" Although he was very pleased at the moment, he still tried to maintain a calm demeanor as he replied, "Oh, it's nothing." She hesitated slightly before suggesting, "There's a place I'd like to visit, if you don't mind." Hina turned her head to look at Yuan and with a smile asked, "My lady, why have you come here?" Yuan immediately replied, "It's easy to get frostbite this season, so I've come to inspect the herbal storage." "And this person is—" The young man wearing glasses involuntarily broke into a sweat, introducing himself. "I am the utterly incompetent imperial physician sent from the capital. I am Hilly. My lady, His Highness does not allow me near his room, so I can only do trivial tasks like these." Yuan placed a hand over her chest, her eyes crinkling into a smile as she introduced herself. "I am Yuan from Pellier's. It's a pleasure to meet you, Imperial Physician Hilly." Hilly smiled and asked in return, "From Pellier's? Do you mean that Pellier's?" Yuan, looking a little puzzled, confirmed, "Yes, that's right." Because he was processing the situation, he stood still, motionless, staring at her for a moment. Then tears of excitement welled up in his eyes, and he exclaimed, "A member of the Pellier's family called me. Master!" Seeing this, Hina, who was beside him, couldn't help but blush awkwardly and ask, "Why are you being so dramatic? What kind of place is Pellier's after all?" Adjusting his glasses, Hila asked back, "Are you asking what Pellier's is? It is the most prestigious medical family in Euphrates, both in reputation and in reality. In this country, without referring to Pellier's books and research is unthinkable. All matters of life and death in Euphrates must go through Pellier's. It's truly disappointing that you don't know such a renowned family." Hina angrily retorted, "What? Since when does a maid get treated by a royal physician?" Mr. Gustav immediately feigned a cough to remind them. Suddenly noticing something, Yuan quickly asked with concern, "Were you injured while preparing the herbs?" She smiled and replied, "Oh, it's nothing serious." Hearing Henna say that, Yuan turned to look at Hilla and said, "Now that I think about it, Professor Hilla, your hands don't seem to be in much better condition either." Raising both hands in front of him, he smiled and confirmed, "Ah, it must be from pruning the umbrella tree myself." Hearing that, she offered, "Let me take a look. May I borrow your medical kit for a moment?" A moment later, Yuan was helping Hina bandage her wound. After she finished bandaging it, Hina happily spread her hand out and remarked, "Seeking a doctor when ill is the best medicine. It feels much better now." Hilla smiled and continued, "The method of applying medicine truly makes a difference. I have learned a lot, young lady." Receiving their praise, Yuan unexpectedly smiled happily, then rubbed her hands together, thinking to herself, "It's not that it doesn't hurt. The pain I willingly endure is not as pleasant as I imagined. I've never felt anything similar before. If only it could stay like this." Mr. Gustav gently smiled and suggested, "Young lady, we will send someone to assist with your supplies soon. You should return to your room to rest."
Yuan broke into a sweat, turning her head in surprise to ask, "My supplies?" He immediately confirmed, "Yes, it's time for you to move into the master bedroom properly. Staying in the guest area isn't very appropriate." Looking at the fully furnished room, Yuan stood silently, full of bewilderment. Hina stood behind her, puffing out her chest and continuing, "The butler has been called, young lady. This room is now yours. You can decorate it as you wish." She glanced at the room, her heart full of thought. A private space? She hadn't had that since she was 10 years old. A series of unpleasant memories flashed through her mind. While Regina had everything, Louise could only be like a servant, toiling away in the shadows. Glancing at her cousin, Louise looked at herself with self-doubt. Returning to the servants' quarters, her younger sister Yuan had already spread the blanket, waiting. As soon as she saw her older sister, she happily waved her over. Lying on the bed, Louise softly asked Yuan, "Do you think I'll ever have my own room again someday?" She looked up and nodded at her sister. "Of course.
What kind of room do you want, Louise? At this moment, Yuan returned to reality, lost in thought. A room with her own private laboratory, so she could focus on finding a cure for her sister's illness. She looked at the table, her eyes welling up. Hina's voice rang out again, explaining, all these things were bought by Sir Pelias at the Central Market in Loxenhart yesterday.
Yuan reached out and gently smoothed the old stack of papers. However, it was already too late. She smiled, turning back to Hina, unable to hide her delight. Everything is beautiful. Thank you, Hina. She placed a hand on her chest and nodded with pride. Everyone is truly delighted that you have become the lady of this house. I am the one who should thank you. I look forward to serving you, my lady. Yuan responded softly with a bright smile. Night fell once more. The sound of glass shattering echoed continuously, the carpet strewn with shards and fresh bloodstains. The man's angry screams still rang out steadily. It hurts so much, someone please help me. In the shattered mirror, Clad's back was clearly visible, engulfed in agony. His face was drenched in tears of pain. Before he could take a single step, the curse of that day. Every night, the pain returned, once again trapping him in isolation. Hille was finishing his shift, making a final round around the mansion to confirm everything. Hina, really, don't leave everything for me to clean up. But the further he went, the more the horrifying screams from his room echoed in his ears. He stopped dead, looking ahead. Hille began to realize something was wrong. Your Highness. Hille ran and pounded on the door. Your Highness, please open the door.
Clad, his face cold, subtly glanced towards the door as he heard the following words. I am Hille, the royal physician personally dispatched by the royal family. The more anxious he became, the more urgently he called out, I must personally examine your Highness's condition before making an accurate diagnosis. Please, your Highness, grant permission. A long moment later, the door slowly creaked open. Hille stood silently, looking inside. He was speechless with horror when he saw his Highness in a terrifying state, with black veins protruding around his face.
Hille was startled, falling backward with a thud, accompanied by a terrified scream from the royal physician's position. The next morning, the sun slowly emerged. In the room, he muttered strangely to himself, useless. The royal family has never sent anyone trustworthy. Clad's eyes were lifeless. At that moment, a series of old scenes appeared in his memory, about his friend Lancelot, about the girl Louise, and that unexpected kiss he could never forget. He had felt something very strange, a feeling he had never experienced before. At this moment, Clad slightly opened the door and peered outside with annoyance. Is she still wasting time in the garden? He stood by the window, irritably calling her back. Hey, we need to talk. Yuan startled and turned around. Your Highness. Her eyes sparkled, and she softly thanked him. Thank you for allowing me to use the room. Today I went to see it with Hina, and it was really... Clad angrily shouted. Enough. He irritably rubbed his forehead. Yuan looked up, her smile fading slightly, replaced by worry. As soon as she made her decision, she hurried up the stairs with determination. I'll be right there. The man was sweating, muttering, that veil of darkness is... Yuan was trying her best to rush towards his Highness, but after only a few steps she asked herself, wait, why am I running to him like this? 1,000 thoughts flashed through Yuan's mind. He might be the one who killed Louise, but the thought, which had only just flickered, was immediately extinguished. But what if soothing his pain means betraying Louise? But no matter what she thought, Yuan pushed the door open and stepped inside. Just then she looked up with surprise. Yuan was like standing in the light, looking into the dark night within. Clad's cold face also stared at her, his eyes slightly narrowed with annoyance.
But his arm gently reached out and took her wrist. I admit, starting tonight, I need you. Yuan's lips trembled, as if unwilling to understand. Don't you remember that entire wedding night when I proved my capabilities? Though he didn't want to admit it, Clad still arrogantly nodded. But in her mind, a thought arose, deceit.
She sighed softly, as if reproaching him. So now you finally admit that I am the mistress of this house and your wife? Hearing these reproaches, Clad irritably retorted. From the very beginning you begged me not to abandon you. You had nowhere else to go, didn't you? Having found Yuan's weakness, he grew even more arrogant, sneering. I hear Pelias is desperate to get you back, aren't they? I don't know how they treated you, but it certainly wasn't pleasant. After the wedding night, where you proved everything, who else would want to marry you? Yuan bowed her head, trembling intermittently. Clad continued, Now you intend to exploit my pain to stay here? Her hands clenched the hem of her dress, trying to remain calm in front of him. Yuan felt her tongue tied in front of his Highness. What should I do? I can't say anything. But a moment later, Clad said nothing more unpleasant. This time he had to admit one thing, that she possessed a rather useful skill, didn't she? There were no longer lines of new brides, nor chaotic screams. Clad rubbed his forehead. It seems we both need something from each other.
If Clad has seriously recommended you, then I will treat you as a useful servant. Therefore, know your place and live like a dead rat. Yuan was stunned by this unique offer. Her cheeks flushed slightly, a hint of joy rising from the bottom of her heart. I won't have to return to the Count's house anymore. If I can just stay here and keep a sufficient distance, perhaps one day I can talk to him about Louise. Seeing her silence, Clad felt sidelined and annoyed. Answer me. Yuan startled in alarm. Yes, I will. Thank you, Your Highness. Despite his contemptuous words, she was happy and even thanked him, leaving him speechless. His cheeks also flushed slightly out of embarrassment. But isn't just using medicine enough? Yuan looked bewildered, not quite understanding the meaning of the question. Huh? Clad's voice grew softer. Like, intimate contact? Do we really have to do that? Recalling earlier, Clad had asked her this. So you mean you have a special ability that activates just by touch? That's the power that makes me fall asleep, right? But Clad didn't believe a single word of it. How ridiculous. I don't even need to acknowledge you as family. Gustav, take this deceitful woman back to the guest room. Understood, Your Grace? We'll just call her out when needed. At this moment, Yuan slammed the table, taking all responsibility upon herself. I'll do it. Clad's jaw dropped in astonishment. He began to back away. Doesn't she know what shame is? Not wanting her to see him in this state, Clad began to dismiss her. All right, stop looking and get to work.
Yuan's eyes widened in astonishment as she replied, Yes, Your Highness. That night the teacup on the table was empty. Beside the bed, Clad had fallen into a deep sleep. Yuan sat beside him, covering her face, trembling with worry. After a long period of silence, Yuan finally let out a sigh of relief. She mumbled, So that should be enough, just enough for one good night's sleep. I never intended to take more than that. But if he ever treated Louise badly, or worse, if he himself was the one who killed her, then he deserves to suffer. Yuan mumbled, And you? Please. She leaned closer to him with an earnest plea. Let me touch a small corner of that closed-off heart. Please tell me about Louise. Her tears began to fall. She whispered, My sister, his wife, even if only for a short time, I hope she rests peacefully in this land.
Yuan gently gritted her teeth, suppressing the pain of losing her sister. I hope you weren't the one who hurt her, and I hope this place can truly become my home. The next morning, sunlight streamed into the large room. The sunlight illuminated a poetic corner of the bookshelf. Men were slowly carrying large and small boxes inside. Gustav was also startled. These are the things you ordered, right? And the curtains, drapes, and bedding are all fine, aren't they? Yuan's mouth fell open. Then she smiled and replied, I think this is quite a lot already. He glanced over. Her voice was a little too loud. Miss, she sighed softly. Sorry, I didn't mean to. But he only wanted to remind her that being constantly watched and listened to, she should gradually get used to being addressed properly. Other things could be managed, but she really needed proper clothes, as she seemed to have brought nothing with her. Yuan asked in surprise, Did His Highness say that? Gustav thought for a moment, then nodded in affirmation. Yes, he did say that. He recalled Clad's words. Is she still wrapped in that flimsy piece of cloth since she arrived? Quickly prepare proper clothes for her. Do I really need to concern myself with even this? The butler nodded, sweating profusely. Understood, Your Highness. But when relaying it to Yuan, he completely softened the harshness of the original words. It gets very cold here in winter. His Highness instructed me to take good care of you. Having said that, Gustav secretly thought to himself, That's probably not wrong, is it? Seeing a whole rack of clothes being pushed in, she felt a little worried. But is this really okay? No one here is hosting parties or visiting, so why do I need to dress up?
She trembled, clutching her chest in disbelief. Even though it was as many as 30 outfits, she was still excited to try them on, not to mention scarves, gloves, cloaks, and earmuffs, all of which were necessities. 30 outfits truly meant 30 outfits. Yuan worried. The budget was already very tight. We really should have ordered more cloaks for the servants. But the maid put her hands on her hips and reminded her, But if our young lady doesn't dress appropriately, how can we possibly hold our heads high? He also interjected enthusiastically, That's right, young lady, we're not that poor, and besides, His Highness has already agreed. Gustav added, The master of the mansion doesn't pay attention to such things. He always wears that same old cloak. But if the young lady dresses a little beautifully, the entire mansion will brighten up immediately. Yuan also took these words to heart, and she began to think about dressing more beautifully. She said, Thank you all for always thinking of me. It would be a lie to say I'm not pleased.
The maid whispered softly to Gustav, I think I finally understand what Hannah meant. That indescribable, warm, floating feeling that I've never felt in this mansion before. She is the first young lady that His Highness has personally acknowledged. Therefore, we will serve wholeheartedly and turn this place into a truly cozy home for her. At the same time, Blanico appeared with the butler, mocking Count Pelias. Look who it is. No wonder it's been noisy since morning, that trashy count. He gritted his teeth, trying to swallow his anger. That Brett, ignore him. As long as I can get Yuan out of there, I'll play along with this ridiculous charade to the very end.
When he glanced over again, he knelt down, wailing pitifully, "Your Highness, please save my poor grandchild from that mad prince."
He sneered. "Blonico, I don't understand what he's saying." Pelias roared. "That deposed prince, clad Euphorus, he dared to take not just one, but two of my precious granddaughters, and without a proper wedding at that." He clenched his fists in anger. "I've never heard of such a brazen marriage." Blonico's voice rang out coldly. "A wedding? He's merely a prince in name, nothing more than a name recorded in the royal family tree. A wedding would only be a waste. Even finding him a wife was a waste of manpower. Wouldn't you agree?" The butler behind him nodded in confirmation. He even cleared his throat and continued his master's words. And even if a wedding were to be held, if Count Pelias had any shred of decency left, he wouldn't dare show his face there. He sneered. "So you agree with me, too?" Pelias bowed his head, unconvinced. A perfectly nauseating pair. He added, "But your Highness," but Blonico cut him off, saying, "You just lost one granddaughter, yet you've nonchalantly moved on to the next bride as if nothing happened. He truly is too generous, isn't he?" The Count bowed his head, nodding repeatedly. To dare play such a deceitful trick in front of his Highness, it was a miracle he still kept his head. Suddenly he exclaimed, "That's right." He stroked his chin and divulged a secret. "Having come all the way to Cielo like this, I should offer you a bit of news as a gift, shouldn't I, you trashy Count?"
Perhaps the wedding hasn't truly taken place yet, but you will soon have the chance to meet your granddaughter again at that infamous Black Mansion. His eyes shone like stars, wanting only to look up and confirm the truth. "Is that true?" He nodded and continued. "Blonico's beautiful yet terrifying cousin seems to have finally found her match." Recalling that night, Blonico looked nostalgic. When I asked him if there was any proof of the wedding night, the frantic servant brought in a bedsheet soaked in fresh blood. He was astonished, unable to believe his eyes, while the other man responded nonchalantly. The Count's face looked utterly deflated. "What?" His voice rang out coldly. "Blonico, I am truly thrilled. My brother has finally found his match. They are truly a perfectly beautiful couple."
"Blonico, you like beautiful things, don't you?" The butler nodded, joining in the praise. "Your lordship truly possesses the most discerning eye for beauty in all of Euphorus." Pelias felt like these two were spinning him around. That deposed prince found a suitable match? Proof on the wedding night? Before leaving, he didn't forget to sneer at the Count. "Anyway, there's some fun coming up, so just sit there and wait, you traitorous, trashy Count." The Count gritted his teeth, utterly bewildered. "Wait, I haven't betrayed anyone. Your Highness, I've given up 2 granddaughters, not just one." But he paid no attention, turning sharply away, calling out to the butler behind him. "Blonico, why don't we let that trashy Count join in the fun too? That way we can also see if he's still useful as a vassal, right?" In any case, Blonico was a lenient man. He nodded, flattering his master's wishes. "I only hope that shameful wretch knows his place and shows gratitude." Coincidentally, that was exactly what the prince had always thought. "Blonico, I think so too." Watching the two of them play off each other over there, the Count was speechless.
Count Pelias trembled with rage. Her pride no longer mattered. What the hell had just reached her ears? Yuan wasn't abandoned. Had the girl truly spent her wedding night with that deposed prince? At the mansion she stood dazed, looking up. Why? The room's curtains remained drawn, without the slightest movement. Yuan couldn't understand, no matter how much she thought about it. Why hadn't he called for her yet? As she pondered, she paced back and forth, utterly bewildered. 2 days had passed, and she still couldn't guess what he was thinking. She truly couldn't read his mind. Perhaps that was for the best. She didn't have to endure anything, and that brought her some relief. Nevertheless, she still had to find a way to approach him, anyway, as long as she could mention Louise. But recalling previous attempts, none had succeeded. Even when she made noise outside his door, he didn't react, and every night he locked his door. Suddenly, a bold thought struck Yuan. Was he watching her? She leaned to one side, her feet swaying until they trembled. She just wanted to see even a single strand of his hair. At that moment, the room's curtains were slowly and softly drawn open. The moment she saw him, her heart sighed with relief. His gaze was no different from usual. Clad crossed his arms, full of disdain. "What are you, a mad dog? Suddenly excited just because you're wearing new clothes?" Misunderstood, she hastily clarified. "It's not because of the clothes. I ran here because I wanted to see your Highness."
Clad frowned in confusion when Yuan mentioned her. "Huh?" She nodded repeatedly in agreement. "Yes, why?" Her face slightly flushed. She looked up and solemnly said to him, "I said I would work for you, but you haven't called me once." Her eyes were slightly teary and fearful. "I was afraid you would change your mind and send me away." Even though I was trembling with worry at the time, just seeing my fully furnished room helped me feel more at ease. I just wanted to say thank you very much. Yuan continued. And I'm not happy just because I have new clothes. This cloak is new, that's right, but the outfit underneath. She smiled faintly, taking off the fluffy outer coat so Clad could see more clearly. I've been wearing them all this time, see? The outfit doesn't look very old, does it? They don't bother you anymore, do they? But he showed annoyance and complained. Didn't you buy any clothes? Why aren't you wearing new clothes?
Clad also mentioned the butler's crime. What is Gustav doing? Yuan eagerly exclaimed. I have new clothes, let me show you. So, can I come over? He pursed his lips, saying nothing. The door snapped shut once more. Inside, he crossed his arms, deep in thought. Just a little kindness, and who does she think she is? Who said I wanted to see? But he looked towards the door with more anticipation than ever. She's probably just wearing those simple, boring clothes, as always. A moment later, a loud noise came from outside the door. Clad immediately turned away as if he didn't care. You may enter. He tried to appear as annoyed and grumpy as possible. At this moment, in the dim light, Yuan appeared in a new outfit. A purple, off-the-shoulder dress was revealed. Clad was also astonished by this dazzling sight. Your Highness, Yuan said. Clad frowned, glancing at her with a look of disdain, as if interrogating a criminal. Who allowed you in here? Yuan's hands gripped the hem of her dress tightly. She trembled slightly as she replied, I was just trying on my new clothes. Thank you, Your Highness. But Yuan's keen eyes noticed Clad was in an unusual state. She approached him and asked, Are you unwell, Your Highness? Why didn't you come find me? Clad immediately turned away, avoiding her gaze. Why? Are you upset because I haven't given you any tasks? Yuan gently shook her head in response. No. She sensed he was in pain. I will come as soon as the sun sets. Every day, around this time. Her soft voice echoed in his ear. If it's too early, I can come a little later. Yuan then turned to notice the teacup on the other side. She gently picked up the half-empty teacup.
Clad watched his every move. She brought the tea, still slightly bowed, and softly said to him, Please, Your Highness, don't lock the door anymore. For a moment, Clad's guarded heart seemed to be warmed by a flame, but then he turned his face away as if to avoid it. The new room was strangely warm, and the clothes gently embraced me, and the truths I longed to know. Nothing is free. The next morning.
Clad groggily woke up, finding himself on a perplexing bed. Not again? Clad gently ran his hand over the surface, muttering, I don't remember anything from last night, and the raven is gone too. He thought to himself, not that he cared, but the scratches on the bedsheets made Clad ponder. The adjacent bedsheets were full of signs that someone had tossed and turned all night. As for his cloak, not even the knot had been untied. What the hell? By now, the outside was so noisy it was almost deafening. Clad? He burst through the door so quickly that the person outside couldn't hold him back. Were you planning to lace in bed all day again? You haven't answered any of the letters I sent. But Clad seemed utterly unconcerned. Didn't you once say your greatest wish was to have a peaceful sleep? And now I only get to sleep peacefully amidst all this chaos? He let out a long sigh. Our beloved prince shows no urgency whatsoever. He anxiously voiced his concerns. Do you know what people are saying in court? It's no longer just impetuousness, it's irresponsibility now. But Clad calmly retorted, Isn't scolding me through Lancelot enough? But Lancelot turned his face away, as if hiding something. Just then, he also noticed this oddity. What's going on? Lancelot sighed, clutching his chest. He tossed a finely patterned letter onto the bed. See for yourself, it's a letter from the royal palace. He squinted at the sealed letter in his hand. Lancelot anxiously whispered his name. Clad, that letter is a warning. Clad's face turned ashen, and his eyes lost their composure. From the very uncle who had turned Clad into a monster. Emperor Igor Euphorus personally announced that he would come to Black Manor to arrange a wedding for his nephew, whom he hadn't seen in 10 years.
Clad asked only one question. Where is my wife? The other person sighed, reminding him, Is that so important now, sir? You should worry about yourself and figure out how to deal with this. But Clad merely ordered Yuan, Once you find her, bring her to my room immediately. She could be in danger if someone else gets to her first. Outside, snow blanketed the pathway. So it's official then, isn't it? The lady will stay here forever.
Hannah looked at her with eyes full of admiration. She couldn't hide her joy, chattering away to Yuan. Now I believe it. Everyone has someone meant for them. I never thought the master would accept a lady staying in this mansion. But deep down, she understood that, on the surface, they looked like a couple who were intimate every night. However, that was already more than enough for her. When I first walked through the White Forest, I felt like I was approaching an unpredictable, strange beast. But now, he is like a wounded stray cat, full of vigilance, gruff, proud, and sharp. Just mentioning last night's events, that calm half of his face slowly flushed red. I knew he was recalling something he couldn't quite remember himself. I'm no longer afraid to approach him. A jet-black horse neighed loudly, and a surprised voice exclaimed, "Oh my!" Yuan was helped down from the carriage by a servant. Behind her, Henna remarked, "It seems the young Marquis and Sir Lancelot have arrived. They used to visit often, but lately it's been even more frequent." Henna and Yuan walked into the mansion, where quite a few people stood in the front hall.
Yuan noticed 3 people discussing animatedly in the hall. She wasn't sure what was happening, but they seemed particularly busy today. At that moment, Lancelot felt someone watching him and turned to look. Seeing it was her, he exclaimed in surprise, "Ah, my lady!" Hearing this, Lancelot's brother turned to look. Then he coldly walked away. Lancelot, not understanding what was happening, cried out, "Oh no, brother!" He was awkward, only managing a forced smile before turning to instruct Gustav, "There's an urgent, unexpected matter, so we must leave immediately. We will send an official document from the family to explain in detail." Gustav nodded in agreement. Next, he reminded Yuan, "As for you, my lady, perhaps it's best you meet with Clad." Yuan looked bewildered. "Has something happened? Is he unwell today?" Lancelot silently recalled Clad's irritable demeanor. After a moment of thought, he smiled brightly and cheerfully. "Just now I believe I heard the master mention you, my lady." As soon as he finished speaking, Lancelot immediately followed his brother. Gustav approached her and called, "Ah, my lady." He presented a sealed letter. "This letter is addressed specifically to you, my lady. It's just that the sender—" Gustav stammered for a moment before saying, "It's from the Pelleas family." Yuan looked at him indifferently. In the letter, every word clearly conveyed Count Pelleas' fury. "To my ungrateful granddaughter, Yuan Pelleas. Do you think we would never meet again? You foolish, pathetic girl. After all I have bestowed upon you, you repay me with selfishness and disgrace." Even from afar, he used his familiar methods to threaten her. "Even if you hide in that mansion, I still have countless ways to drag you out."
Yuan tore the letter in half, throwing it straight into the fireplace, ignoring the screams from within. "This isn't over." Meanwhile, Clad calmly stood, gazing at the fountain outside the glass window. A knock sounded at the door, and he frowned in annoyance, asking, "Who is it?" Yuan replied, "It's me." Clad was silent for a moment, then said, "Come in." She slowly pushed the door open. He asked in a cold tone, "Where have you been?" Yuan approached Clad and recounted everything. "They say there's a small chapel nearby." She looked sad, a tear involuntarily falling, as she asked, "Why?" Yuan recalled meeting Marquis Campagna in the chapel. "I have a request before we leave. In a place where any atrocity could occur," she proposed, "I want to take my sister with me." Yuan also didn't want the noisy crowd behind them to disturb Louise. "I don't want their people to touch Louise's body. I want to bury her with my own hands." But he flatly refused. "I'm sorry, Your Highness. That unfamiliar voice, that unfamiliar title. I no longer have time to think about such things. We need to get Louise out of here, immediately." Marquis Compositive. If burial was not possible, the only remaining option was cremation. She stared wide-eyed in shock, clenching her teeth. "Burn her?" Yuan, tense and urgent, cried out, "Please answer me. Do you mean you're going to burn her? Why?" He remained unmoved by her. "That is the law of the imperial court." Yuan collapsed, falling to the floor. "It can't be." With tears welling up in her eyes, she looked desperately towards her. There, the entire Pelleas family looked at Yuan with disgust.
Now she recalled the happy times between herself and Louise. She thought of her gentle, sun-warmed smile. "When we leave this place, let's start by planting a garden and waiting for spring together." But now Louise was nothing more than a cold corpse. She was sad, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You'll wait, won't you?" Yuan could only arrange Louise's funeral. "Then cremate her at my place. Whether it's cremation or burial, just don't let them take her away." The Marquis remained indifferent, not uttering a word. Yuan covered her mouth, not wanting her choked sobs to disturb her. "I got into the carriage without a single complaint. This is all I ask." Louise's coffin was carried by 6 people. Just like that, she was carried out of the church. Yuan followed behind, accompanying Louise on her final journey. Back in the present, she weirdly recounted the situation during her prayer. However, Clad's resentful tone made her freeze. "Who permitted that?" He irritably, with a scowl, ordered, "Don't go anywhere on your own without permission." She awkwardly clutched the hem of her skirt. Hearing Clad's angry words, she could only remain silent. "Understood? Then go." Yuan left the room, leaned against the wall and sighed in frustration. She was confused, unsure how to deal with Clad's issue. Suddenly, Gustav appeared from nowhere to comfort her. "Please don't take it too much to heart, my lady." She looked at him curiously. "Has something happened?" Gustav announced a shocking piece of news. "His Imperial Majesty will be arriving here in 3 days." Yuan gasped in surprise, quickly covering her mouth. He also recounted the Emperor's current state. "His Highness has been troubled lately, and his temper has become more irritable than before. I hope you will be understanding." She absently recalled the rumors. It was rumored that he was a cold-hearted tyrant.
He regarded human lives as worthless, preferring hunting to governing the empire, and whispers throughout the capital claimed that the one who had made him this way, the one who had usurped the throne that rightfully belonged to him, was none other than his own flesh and blood.
Yuan recalled the letter she had received in Clad's room. Clad? To be willing to treat others this way? However, she had thrown that letter into a blazing fire. Thinking of this, Yuan was no longer surprised. Ah, so that's how it is. At this moment he was so desperate that he locked himself in his room. It wasn't merely illness or fatigue that made him as cold and sharp as a blade. She calmly replied to Gustav, "Now I understand." By evening, Yuan and he lay together on a single bed. Yuan thought that perhaps she understood the hatred in his heart more than anyone, because only by enduring it together could she truly comprehend that pain. She slowly reached out her hand, wondering if she had to continue living like this. Yuan held Clad's arm as he fell asleep. Perhaps they could be a small comfort to each other. Or was that still too distant to hope?
3 days later, the head maid constantly urged the maids, "His Majesty is almost here." Everyone quickly moved to prepare for the Emperor's sudden visit. The attendants from the capital Cielo had rushed down to clean up the annex of Black Manor. The unfamiliar servants, dressed in immaculate uniforms, made the young maids admire them. Yuan also saw everyone's excited eyes. Shouldn't we also have cute and cozy uniforms made for our staff? Outside the mansion, a stream of servants approached. The large doors suddenly swung open. Even this dark, cold manor could be bustling at times. She tilted her head and looked to the side. Such a scene must not happen often here. Afterwards, Yuan's attention turned to the room where Clad was staying. She stared at it, lost in thought. A few days prior, Yuan tried to talk to him. There are too many people in this world who are nothing like family, even though they should be. Clad, indifferently, paid no attention to her words. "I know these words can't soothe your Highness's heart much, but..." Yuan tried her best to persuade him. "Now you are no longer in the palace. You have begun to build a new family." Her hand, resting on the soft bedsheet, began to move. Yuan reached out to him, but Clad pulled away. "So perhaps you can also start to forget, little by little." His face showed annoyance. "What do you know?"
Clad was frustrated, contemplating how little someone like her truly understood, and she was stunned, feeling her inner world shatter like thin glass. He, with an arrogant demeanor, completely disregarded Yuan's advice. He said, "Don't pretend to know anything when you yourself don't even clearly understand. Just do your own part well." He also made one thing clear, and don't wander off anywhere on your own again. She sat helplessly, lost in thought on the bed, realizing that understanding someone and touching their heart were perhaps two entirely different things. Her heart ached as if someone had forcefully pushed into her chest, even though she thought she had grown accustomed to it. Then he leisurely picked up the hot teacup. Clad slowly savored a sip of tea. Yuan sat quietly by his side. "Why are your words always so harsh?" When he finished his tea, a cold glint appeared in his eyes. She pulled him closer and placed a kiss on him. "Is it wrong to want harmony?" Yuan sat on Clad's lap, embracing him. He didn't even know who was secretly helping him achieve peaceful sleep every night. Her trembling hand wanted to rest on Clad's shoulder. "You're the one who knows nothing." Suddenly, a voice rang out, waking Yuan from her thoughts. "Madam," Henna approached her, carrying a letter. "Another letter from Pelliers has arrived." Henna hesitantly asked for Yuan's instructions. "Just handle it as usual," Yuan gently agreed. "Yes, thank you." All the letters that arrived met the same fate, the flames. She had received countless letters from Pelliers. Initially, she would read all those threats and intimidations, but now she didn't even bother to glance at them, simply tossing them into the fireplace. Meanwhile, Count Pelliers and Frederick stood fuming outside the door. Even if her uncle were to arrive tomorrow with Frederick by his side, Loxenhart's towering iron fence and formidable guard force would stop them.
A worry still gnawed at Yuan's heart, but as for him, who could stop him? On the icy, snowy road, a carriage was approaching. I had fled to Black Manor, but where could Clad possibly run? The lead rider was Blonico. Inside the carriage was Marquis Campagny. And of course, he couldn't be absent, the man with the ever-deceitful smile. Clad and Yuan advanced towards the half-open gate. Would Clad consider this place home? Today he wore a solemn ceremonial suit, a mask concealing his scar. She calmly accompanied him to welcome the arriving guests. Under the dazzling light, Igor pulled the reins taut, asserting his authority before the two. He arrogantly cast a scrutinizing gaze upon both of them. Yuan, startled, quickly avoided Igor's gaze. He dismounted directly from his horse. Then Igor took decisive steps towards her. Yuan could only bow in reverence, glory and purity to Emperor Euphrates. She fearfully uttered these greetings. "It is an honor to meet your majesty, the emperor." As soon as Yuan looked up, she was confronted by his repulsive face. Igor gestured for her to offer her hand. Yuan hesitated, her face beaded with sweat, unsure of what to do. She glanced at Clad, seeking his opinion. but he remained cold and unresponsive.
Yuan could only extend her trembling hand. Igor suddenly grabbed her hand, unhesitatingly pulling off the glove Yuan was wearing, then immediately lifted her hand. Yuan, sensing an ominous premonition, was bewildered to realize that Emperor Igor Euphorus was not just an ordinary tyrant. He frantically inhaled the lingering scent on her hand, making Yuan so frightened that she only wanted to retreat. Suddenly, Igor opened his mouth and took her fair pink finger into it. Disgust was evident on Yuan's face, and a chill ran through her entire body. Watching him frantically lick her finger, she silently confirmed. He was a true mad dog.
After that reception, Yuan could only hide in the deserted corridor. She was desperate, her breathing growing heavy. On her hand, Igor's teeth marks were still clearly visible. While Yuan was still lost in thought, a familiar voice rang out, startling her. "Hey!" Clad suddenly appeared beside Yuan. Seeing his emotionless face, she felt awkward. Your Highness, Clad's gaze lingered on her hand, where his marks were still imprinted. He swept past Yuan, not forgetting to admonish, "Don't wander off by yourself again." Her face flushed instantly. A feeling of humiliation involuntarily welled up. "Yes, I apologize." Meanwhile, at the banquet table, laden with fresh fruits and pastries, the nobles stood in groups, chatting animatedly. "So this is where Yuan is living?" Regina offered her assessment without hesitation. "It's unclear how much the royal family spent, but the banquet is decent enough. Still, this is just a dark, gloomy mansion." Sophia interjected to remind her, "Lady Regina, this is still the former crown prince's residence after all." Sophia received a glare from her, and her spirits immediately sank. "You shouldn't say such things where others can hear." Regina was annoyed and could only curse inwardly. Why? Just because it's royal property I'm not allowed to speak my mind? However, her expression softened, and she smiled gently. "Well, it doesn't matter."
Regina happily thought of the high-ranking Earl Dracov Trelawney, who was also attending this party. Her plan was to cause a slight scandal with him tonight, then debut as the muse of the ball season. While she was still dreaming, what man in this world would overlook the beautiful young lady of the prestigious Police family? Earl Police discontentedly questioned Gustav about his seating. "What? They've seated us at the very end of the table? We're the bride's family, after all." Countess Police then added, "How can they treat the Police family like this?" Regina excitedly looked around, searching for him. "Now, where is my beloved Dracov's hiding?" She continued to walk throughout the ballroom. Yuan was sitting quietly in one spot, sensing someone approaching. Regina happened to meet her gaze, smiling slyly with satisfaction. Seeing that smile, Yuan immediately knew something was wrong. At this moment, Sophia peeked out, calling, "Miss Regina." She opened her fan, sneering arrogantly. Oh, there's Yuan." Regina used her fan to cover half her face, uttering a sarcastic remark. "Where is the disgraced crown prince? Why are you here alone?" Seeing this, Sophia couldn't help but feel apprehensive. She lightly lifted the hem of her dress, bowing formally. "I respectfully greet the former crown princess." Regina frowned, her face clearly showing disdain for Sophia's attitude. She arrogantly laughed loudly in derision. Heavens, how utterly ridiculous. Then Regina leaned slightly, saying with delight, "Allow me to make a brief introduction, Yuan. Not that the two of you will meet again, but it's always good to know someone your age. This is Miss Sophia from the Viscount Mellern family. She will be debuting with me this ball season."
Regina immediately reminded Sophia, "Say hello, Miss Sophia. This is Yuan Police." Regina glanced at Sophia. With a haughty attitude, Regina folded her fan. "Your cousin once ran away from home to get married and hasn't bothered to send a single letter since. Do you know what my parents had to endure because of her?" Yuan angrily clutched the hem of her dress, the tense atmosphere making Sophia fearful. Sophia stood up and suggested to Yuan, "Shall we go outside to talk for a bit?" A moment later, in the mansion's hallway, lined with large glass windows, Regina, without any restraint, sneered, "Living quite well, aren't we? And dressed in things that don't suit you at all. Selling yourself to a monster must be enough to buy all these designer items, huh?" Regina didn't forget to add mockingly, "How clever, just like how you stole my father from our own home." Yuan was not at all fazed by the words. "You and your family are the ones who stole, not me." Regina, grinding her teeth in fury, spat out, "What did you say?" Yuan recounted everything. "Your mother took my mother's room, and you took my room."
Yuan irritably added, "There's nothing left in that house that you haven't stolen." She was so angry she shrieked, "Parasite, how dare you speak of my home?" She gathered all her courage and recounted, "I have never lived like a parasite. If that were true, then you should be grateful that I became useful. Your father kept me because he needed me, which means I have value." Yuan's words shocked Regina. She said, "If I were useless, your parents wouldn't have looked at me with such hateful eyes. They also wouldn't have continuously sent me threatening letters, begging me to return." Yuan calmly reminded her of something. "Regina, tell me, has your father ever given you a job?" She was speechless, not knowing how to retort. Regina recalled the time Count Peleus turned his back on her. She irritably argued loudly with him, but Count Peleus didn't care about Regina. Thinking of that humiliating incident, her face darkened. However, she quickly regained her composure, curling her lips into a scornful smile. Regina directly spoke malicious words. "You sold yourself to the one who might have killed your sister."
Yuan endured Regina's taunts. Regina said, "You flattered my father to get into the lab, clinging to Louise when she was lonely." Regina continuously poked at Yuan's pain. She continued, "Now that she's dead and you have nowhere to go, you're planning to take her place, aren't you?" Louise's image flashed in Yuan's eyes. It wasn't like that. Regina, emboldened, continued to provoke Yuan. She said, "You married him instead of letting her do it. You chose to stay in this dark mansion instead of returning to the Pele's estate."
Regina leaned in close, her tone clearly showing contempt. "Did you think I wouldn't notice? That filthy rat instinct, only good for prying." At this moment, she seemed to have noticed someone behind her, and that person was none other than Clad. Regina observed that he was wearing a mask. She then continued to mock. One broken half meeting another broken half. How truly perfect. Regina was so delighted that a smirk lingered on her lips. No matter how beautiful, when everyone knows the filth hidden behind that mask. Stuck here without a title, merely a monster that the whole world sees as a joke. She slowly glided past. "You two are truly a perfect match. If you want to pretend to be a married couple, feel free. Whether you prostitute yourself or not is irrelevant. But remember this, you must write back to my father at once." As soon as she finished speaking, Regina deliberately bumped hard into Yuan's shoulder. She turned back and said coldly, "I know you took something important from his work. If my family gets further implicated because of you, I won't stand idly by." Regina arrogantly blended into the noisy crowd. "Calling you a crow is too kind now, you filthy creature." Now the images of Count Peleus and Countess Peleus became blurry. Yuan felt her head spin, her mood a little unsettled.
Igor exclaimed with admiration, "What a beautiful couple!" Blonico, somewhat surprised, immediately looked in his direction, seeing Yuan and Clad sitting together. Blonico happily chimed in with Igor, "Right? They look so perfect together, don't they?" Though she appeared calm on the outside, internally she was struggling to endure the surrounding pressure. He nodded slightly in satisfaction, uttering a name, Peleus. Igor excitedly revealed Yuan's origin. She comes from the house of Peleus. He immediately understood, his feigned face still holding a gentle smile. "Yes, father, she's from the house of Peleus." At the party where all the nobles gathered, what secrets did that family ultimately hide? More than halfway through the party, she stood dazed in a corner. Yuan bowed her head, her spirit seemingly on the verge of collapse. "I really can't take it anymore." First were the intimidating gazes of the Count and Countess Peleus.
Next came the disgust from Drakov and Regina, followed by Blonico's scrutinizing gaze. There was also Igor's oppressive stare. Those gazes made her uncomfortable. She could only close her eyes tightly to avoid them all. Gustav, passing by, saw that Yuan couldn't hold on much longer. He immediately went to help her retreat. "Miss, you should go inside and rest. The welcoming party is practically over." But Yuan was still worried. "Would it be rude to leave now?" Gustav calmly replied, "His Majesty has already retired, and most guests have returned to their rooms." Yuan, tired, could only sigh. "Thank you, Gustav. I'll rest for a bit." Seeing her condition, he awkwardly asked, "You don't look well. Should I call Mr. Hill?" Yuan refused. "I'm fine. I'll feel better in a bit. I just need a little rest." After a while, Clad turned to look for her, but where Yuan had been standing, there was no one. He frantically spun around to check. Where did she go? Clad quickly searched for her in the crowd. "I told her not to wander off alone." A nobleman called out, "Your Highness?" He immediately left the party. "Excuse me for a moment." Through the window, the dark night was illuminated only by the bright moonlight, making it even more ethereal.
Yuan walked alone down the vast corridor. At least she didn't have to talk to her uncle. She walked slowly, telling herself that she only needed to endure one more day to be with Clad. Suddenly, Igor appeared out of nowhere. "And where do you think you're going, radiating such an alluring scent?" Hearing those words, Yuan's face gradually turned pale. The Emperor? He wrapped his arms around her waist, inhaling deeply the scent on Yuan's body. She struggled in panic. "I am Crown Prince Clad's fiancé." Igor paid no mind. "How dare you declare ownership in front of the Emperor?" Yuan was thus dragged by Igor to a room. "This place is... Don't you like this place?" Frightened, she didn't want to be dragged by him. No one ever comes here." Igor arrogantly lifted Yuan's face. "But I do." He clearly showed his madness. "You are truly beautiful, my enormous jet black treasure, with crimson edges. Oh, what an alluring taste."
Yuan's recently stable mood worsened. I want to go back to the party. Why? But Igor wouldn't easily let her go. I wonder, what would you taste like? She kept asking herself why she had to suffer like this even in this place. For him, the more Yuan suffered, the more excited he became. What would you look like if you cried?
Yuan felt Dreykov and Regina were mocking her. No one in this world saw her as a human being. Even Count and Countess Pelionnaise were the same. They wanted her to remain forever in that broken form. Suddenly, a pair of pristine white hands reached out. Clad stopped Igor's actions and called out, "Your Majesty." Igor looked in surprise towards the source of the sound, clearly seeing Clad's worried expression. Clad, however, only paid attention to Yuan's tear-streaked, resentful face. Yuan, desperate, tears streaming down, called out, "Your Highness." Clad was stirred by Yuan's emotions. Igor still refused to take his hand off Yuan's shoulder, asking Clad, "Have you come to save this woman, to save your beloved wife?" Clad merely gave a faint smile and replied, "To cast aside all other joys, just for a small woman?" Igor played a wicked trick, continuously provoking Clad. "Is there anything more enjoyable than this?" Clad coldly parted his lips. "Yes, there is. This." Then Clad decisively removed his mask, revealing a large scar on his face. Igor, satisfied, released Yuan, saying, "What a masterpiece."
Seeing the nobles approaching, she silently cried out, "No!" Blonico joyfully announced, "Everyone look, the jester has arrived." Yuan stood frozen, watching the nobles continuously laugh and mock. Blonico led the way, with the nobles following eagerly. "No!" Even the parrot chimed in with a sarcastic voice, "Look at him! Oh my, what a spectacle!" Clad proceeded towards the group of people waiting to mock him. The door slowly closed, leaving only his lonely figure. She slumped, burying her face in her hands. She didn't know how long Clad would have to endure their ridicule. "Don't mock someone else's pain just because he didn't turn his back on me, please." Time passed, and the sky outside the window gradually brightened. He lay exhausted on the cold floor. The sound of the door opening echoed, and Clad involuntarily trembled. Only when Yuan's voice reached him did he open his eyes. It's me, Your Highness." Seeing her enter, Clad immediately sat up. "I told you not to wander off on your own." Yuan replied, "Healing." He irritably asked, "You're still here? What for?"
Clad, aghast, seized her arm. "I told you not to go alone, not to wander off by yourself, not to be curious about places you shouldn't set foot in." He questioned her frantically and continuously. "Without permission, not alone, I told you not to wander off like that." Yuan hugged Clad, using magic to soothe his emotions. I'm sorry. I thought it would be fine, because this is home." As night fell, Regina paced, continuously muttering the contents of the letter. "Count Trelawney will arrive late for the party and plans to join from the second day. Thinking of how worried you must have been searching for me, my heart shatters. If you also can't sleep, tossing and turning, could you wait for me in the garden behind the mansion?" Regina smirked triumphantly. "Yuan Pelliez, while you're locked in that monster prince's room, suffering in that hell. I'm sorry, but now it's my turn to start my own love story." At this moment, someone appeared behind her. Miss Pelliez. She jumped at the sound of the call.
A triumphant smirk played on her lips. She had done a complete 180. Regina flashed a charming smile and said, "I have been waiting for Count Dreykov Trelawney." When he didn't react, she grew awkward. Regina lied. "I sent that marriage proposal letter because, well, no, that's not it." Dreykov's eyes sparkled and he uttered flowery words. "If this is destiny, I shall embrace it." Dreykov declared, "I am in love." The words froze Regina. This is nothing like I imagined. At this moment, inside the castle, everyone was chatting at the party. They all smiled, revealing their distinctive buck teeth. Sophia, standing behind, whispered to Regina, "The cloud of the Trelawney clan are those horse-headed men." Regina's face showed no ripple of emotion when she saw their looks. Regina frowned. "Horse-headed?" Sophia added, "I once overheard Lady Celestina and her friends giggling about the men of the Trelawney household." Regina's composure became increasingly difficult to maintain, and her hands clenched her dress until it wrinkled.
Regina was so nervous she broke out in a cold sweat. She remembered that the recipient of her fake love letter was from a notoriously ugly family. Just then, Sophia noticed someone kept staring at them. Sophia, annoyed, asked, "But why does that young master keep staring at Lady Regina? Is he perhaps smitten with you?" Realizing she had been blatantly exposed, Regina could barely control herself, yelling, "How should I know?" This almost made Sophia, standing beside her, jump out of her skin. Regina raised her voice. "Lady Sophia, the Trelawney family has vast territories and is a prestigious noble house. Are those words you're speaking appropriate?" Seeing her annoyed expression, Sophia was a little scared. "Oh, I just thought Lady Regina might not know because you kept glancing at me." Seeing Sophia disregard her wisdom, Regina wouldn't accept it, crossing her arms and demanding, "Why? Why wouldn't I know? Is it just because I wasn't raised as a countess's daughter from a young age?" Sophia quickly bowed her head and explained, "I didn't mean to imply that." Regina warned, "Be careful with your words, Lady Sophia."
Her gaze then shifted elsewhere, finally resting on Yuan and Clad.
Clad wore a mask covering half his face, yet still exuded a radiant, incredibly handsome, youthful charm. At this moment, Regina looked at Dreykov, seeing him as a world apart, which made her extremely uncomfortable. Facing him, Regina recognized a horse-headed man with a human body, smiling. Regina found it increasingly hard to believe her eyes. Regina weighed the comparison. No matter how handsome, it was only half a face. What was a man who didn't dare step outside without a mask compared to Dreykov? She tried to reassure herself against that beauty. Seeing the two of them being intimate, Regina tried to dismiss the thought. It's nothing. But her expression was extremely unsightly, surprising Sophia, who was beside her. Meanwhile, Bloniko's mood wasn't any better, his discomfort clearly visible on his face. Regina seemed to grasp a lifeline. She paused. Bloniko was smiling. Regina was startled. Huh? She looked puzzled by Bloniko's signal. Regina began to imagine. Could this be? This was an opportunity that far surpassed anything Dreykov Kalani could offer. Outside, the horses were ready. Everyone chatted lively. Hunting right after breakfast? That was Prince Bloniko's suggestion. Here, the mountains were covered in thick snow. The only thing that could be hunted was monsters. Make sure to bring enough weapons. At this moment, Clad had finished preparing his hunting gear. Someone asked him, "How's married life, Clad?"
Igor spoke up. "I heard the maids heard some embarrassing sounds all night long. Turns out you're a man after all." He turned to look at him with an extremely judgmental gaze. Igor remarked, "Even if you look like a pathetic crow." Those words pricked Clad's pride, and he glared back irritably. Then Clad shouted, "Get lost!" and spurred his horse into the hunt. While Clad was being intimate with Yuan, she suddenly blurted out, "I thought it would be fine if I stayed home." Clad smiled. "Home?" Yuan froze, unconsciously looking at him. Clad looked at her, saying nothing, just remaining silent. Yuan admitted, "I was wrong. I was too careless." Her hand caressed his face. Yuan whispered, "I didn't expect the Emperor to go so far. I didn't know he was that kind of person. Please don't abandon me." Clad tightened the reins, whipping his horse to run fast. He recalled, "And in that moment, I embraced that woman." He drew his bow. A voice called from behind, "Your Majesty, Your Majesty." Clad still paid no heed, telling himself, "How much further must I fall before it's enough?" The arrow was shot by Clad. He stood still in the forest, watching the arrow fly towards Igor. A voice echoed, "Not that way." Igor smiled and caught his arrow. Clad silently watched him. Then he closed his eyes, but the cry, "Your Majesty," still rang out. Clad whispered, "That was an arrow I couldn't dodge, didn't want to dodge, and didn't even bother to dodge."
The crowd, both afraid and disgusted, wore expressions of extreme loathing. Igor dismounted his horse. Behind him lay a body riddled with arrows. Igor cast a glance behind him, a smirk playing on his lips, and said, "Since the lord of the estate has been wounded, today's banquet is clearly cancelled. My spirits are also shattered. I'm returning now. Make preparations." Upon hearing this, the servants quickly bowed their heads to receive the order.
The Count and Countess stood witnessing the event. Countess Peleus trembled, her face covered in sweat, exclaiming, "His Majesty the Emperor has gone mad." Count Peleus grumpily reminded her, "Silence, Priscilla." The Countess, bewildered, questioned, "You followed him but couldn't stop him. What exactly were you doing?" Countess Peleus indignantly spoke up. "If he wanted to hunt, he should hunt animals. Why? Why has it come to this?" Count Peleus saw her becoming increasingly outrageous, fearing implication, and quickly gestured. "Do you think I didn't try to stop him?" he whispered. "Anyone who dares defy his orders will surely die. If you had seen with your own eyes the arrow shot straight into his ugly nephew, you wouldn't be saying that." The Countess, stubborn, retorted, "We must leave too. I'm too worried. I can't stay here any longer." On the other side, Jan anxiously asked Gustav, "How is His Highness?" But where Gustav reassured her, "I understand your concern, but first we must properly see off His Majesty." Count Peleus on this side was wide-eyed and open-mouthed in astonishment. He suddenly exclaimed, "I must see Jan before I leave." She stood beside him, stopping him. "You can't! How dare you, while His Majesty is still here?" Igor glanced towards Jan, then suddenly smiled and clicked his tongue, saying, "It's a pity we can't enjoy the evening as expected."
Yuan looked at Igor. "I wish your Majesty a safe journey back to the palace." Suddenly, Igor lunged forward and wrapped his arm around her in a terrifying manner. He whispered in her ear, "We will meet again. Don't be too disappointed." After that, he turned and left. A servant spoke up, "Your Majesty, everything is ready for your departure." Igor replied, "Let's go." Yuan bowed her head slightly in accordance with the ritual. Her body began to tremble. Yuan fearfully squeezed her eyes shut. Just then, someone called out to her, "Yuan!" Count Peleus, standing behind her, shouted, "Do you understand how dangerous this place is? You must divorce immediately." Yuan retorted, "This is my home now. What are you talking about, uncle?" Seeing that she dared to raise her voice at him, he quickly explained, "You've misunderstood. Why would you call this place home?" Yuan demanded, "Please leave. Don't order me around anymore." Suddenly, Count Peleus blurted out a secret. "Your husband is the monster who killed your sister." Yuan froze. He probed, "Do you really think your sister's death was due to fate?" Yuan tried to ignore him. "What are you talking about, uncle?" Count Peleus reiterated,
Before your sister came here, 7 other brides had stepped into this mansion. Do you think they all ran away? Some of them died. When night falls, he turns into a monster. He is the mad former crown prince, Clad Euphrates. What do you think he did to his wives? Your sister stayed in this mansion. Something must have happened to Louise. Louise is dead. Each of his words was like holding a mirror up to her. Count Pellier softly said, "Someone else killed your sister. Don't blame the wrong person, Yuan Pelli. No matter how much you hate someone, you cannot sever blood ties. That would be inhumane."
Yuan ignored his words, turning her back and leaving. The Count angrily shouted, "Yuan!" Count Pellier ran over and grabbed her wrist tightly. He said, "The Predator Emperor is your husband. Something must have angered him. That is the Emperor's nature. He will humiliate or destroy anyone who displeases him. He has never forgiven anything. Do you really think you'll be happy turning your back on your family, living next to a hunted prey, swallowing pain day after day?" Yuan angrily turned back, yanking her hand away from him. "It's better than suffering for people in Pellier who have nothing to do with me."
Seeing her reaction, he was startled, unable to believe his eyes. Have you revealed your special ability?" Yuan looked at him puzzled. Seeing her continued silence only made him more curious, and the Count spoke up. "Answer me. Say something. Does everyone here know about your special ability?" Yuan said angrily, "Am I crazy? Why would I reveal it just to bring more suffering upon myself? Do you know how I lived in Pellier?" Hearing her answer, the Count breathed a sigh of relief. "Thank God." He then put on a cheerful face and reminded her, "Don't flaunt your power only to be exploited. Please fulfill your duties to the family." Idiot. Yuan, seeing his act succeed, didn't even bother to care. "Don't interfere. Don't contact me anymore, and don't look for me." Count Pellier said gleefully, "I'll leave today. If you come back, this time I'll listen to everything your aunt and cousins did to hurt you, won't I?" Yuan was so angry she was on the verge of tears. "Honestly," he promised, "if you come back this time, I won't let that happen again." Yuan wondered, how can he be so shameless? After that, the two turned their backs and left. The curtain was drawn. In the carriage, the butler and Blonico sat watching them. The butler spoke up. "It seems Count Pellier has truly brainwashed his niece. Now I need to find out what he's planning. I don't know if I can still trust that slippery merchant's words." The parrot meticulously pecked at each piece of food. Blonico wondered, do we need to trust him? There's no need to try too hard to discard everything. Sometimes even trash needs to be carried along. The butler was confused. "Huh?" Blonico crooked his mouth and explained. "For some reason, His Majesty seems interested in the girl from the Pellier family. Isn't that right?" The butler tried to reject that relationship, but in the end he accepted. "Yes, actually, it's not that uncommon."
Blonico gave a warning glance. You won't get anything past Blonico's eyes. He said with a hint of displeasure, "I came to this party out of curiosity to see how His Majesty would treat the Pellier people, but in the end I had to leave without observing much. It doesn't matter anyway. This is still the most interesting party I've ever attended. When will I ever get another chance to witness Claude's downfall like this?" The butler smiled. "As ordered, I will continue to investigate Count Pellier, but the man in the hat seemed to want to reveal something, yet whenever his family was mentioned, he fell completely silent, his tightly pursed lips, his evasive eyes. The butler, displeased, asked, "What should we do? Torture him?" Blonico burst out laughing. For Blonico to speak like that, it's truly vulgar.
The Clad family still has another daughter, doesn't it? The butler stood dumbfounded. He angrily exclaimed, "What? That brazen police tricked His Highness again?" Seeing his expression, it turned out he had no idea. Blonico said with amusement, "Not the daughter of the late Count and Countess, but the one from that infamous collateral branch." The butler sighed. "Ah." Blonico recalled and assessed. "Her eyes. I like them. Those eyes. Eyes like that. Blonico likes them." The butler asked curiously, "Eyes? If so, that daughter seems even more useful than the old Count." The desperate shouts of a servant. "Your Highness, Your Highness, please let me see the wound. You must not move, or the wound will worsen."
Clad whirred loudly. "I told all of you to get out." His shout made Yuan and the servants worried. Clad's wounded body lay on the bed. Yuan realized that every time he struggled, those demonic arrows would embed deeper into his flesh and bones, causing blood to seep out. Yuan recalled that someone once hit by one of those arrows eventually had to have their entire shoulder amputated. The image of Count Pellier yelling, "Your husband is the monster who killed your sister." Yuan was at a loss, wondering, what should I do? Just then Lancelot appeared, rushing over breathlessly. "What's going on?" Seeing him, Yuan immediately spoke up. "Sir Lancelot." Seeing the situation, Lancelot worried. "What is this?" Clad's desperate scream. "Damn it! Ah!" Lancelot broke out in a cold sweat. "What the hell is?" Yuan's hands trembled uncontrollably. Suddenly, she demanded, "Everyone, get out!" Lancelot was bewildered. "Madam, what exactly happened to Clad? I heard he had an accident during the performance, so I immediately wrote here." In response to his question, Yuan remained silent. Yuan then asked curiously, "Have you ever met Louise Pelise?" Hearing that name startled Lancelot. "What?" Yuan was losing control. She questioned relentlessly, "Is it true that His Highness killed my sister, Louise Pelise?" Lancelot deliberately avoided the issue. "Why are you asking about that right now?" Seeing him beat around the bush, Yuan raised her voice. "Please, answer me." Tears slowly streamed down her face. She was afraid to hear the deadly truth. Lancelot was so tense, he broke out in a cold sweat. Suddenly, Lancelot let out an awkward laugh. "Ha! Where did you hear such a ridiculous rumor? You already know the truth, don't you?"
Lancelot asked, "Was Claude Euphrates ever such a cruel person?" Yuan looked up at him. Lancelot listed each question. "Is Claude Euphrates the kind of person who would inadvertently banish and harm innocent people, as rumored, especially his own wife?" Each question seemed to strike her heart. Yuan gently shook her head. Lancelot sighed and expressed, "If you ever had even the slightest doubt, please tell only me in private. If Claude himself heard those words, it would hurt more than any illness." At this moment, Hilly, who was in the room, heard the commotion and ran out. Hilly was surprised to see the two of them appear in the room. "Madam, let me help you," Yuan offered. Seeing someone offer help moved Hilly to tears. Yuan approached Claude. Clad gritted his teeth in pain, looked at her, and spat out bitterly. "As for you, get out. I said get out, immediately, if you don't want to see something unpleasant happen." Despite his curses, Yuan stubbornly remained. Yuan slowly approached, her hand gently touching his. Clad stiffly said, "Didn't you hear what I said?" "Lancelot, what are you doing? I told you to go outside." Lancelot ignored Clad's words, requesting, "Please, lie still, Clad." Seeing his strong resistance to everyone, Yuan spoke up. "Your Highness, when you are truly in pain, just having someone by your side to hold your hand can halve the pain." Held down by everyone, Clad screamed like a madman. Nonsense! The increasingly intense pain made Clad's senses reel. Hille tensely looked at Yuan. Yuan understood and quickly got to work. Lancelot looked at Clad. Yuan also stared at him with worry and began to channel her energy into his body. Lancelot recalled that a year ago, Clad had been in so much pain that he overdosed on sleeping pills. Between life and death, his sister, Lady Louise Pelise, came to live in this house. Of course, Clad knew nothing about it. She lived silently like a shadow for several months, until one day news suddenly broke that she had run away, and not long after, there was news of her death. I personally went to confirm, and indeed she was dead. According to the attending physician, there were no signs of any foul play. Did she suffer from any chronic illness? Yuan closed her eyes tightly. She suddenly realized. I stayed by his side because I knew he needed me, yet deep down, I didn't want to share any of that pain.
Clad panted, looking at Yuan. Yuan thought to herself, "I once longed to hide in the peace of this place. Yet the thought that Clad himself was the one who destroyed my sister made me believe that at least half of that pain was a fitting punishment for him." Yuan felt guilty, tears streaming down her face. "If only I hadn't lied about consummating our marriage just to stay here, perhaps the Emperor wouldn't have tormented him so much. So I will bear this pain." Yuan squeezed his hand. She whispered softly, "I'm sorry, Your Highness."
Clad softly said, "I'm the one who's injured. Why are you crying?" Yuan smiled and replied, "Because we are family." Clad's face went blank. Just as he was moved and about to kiss her, Hilly's voice rang out. "Your Highness, please bear with it a little longer. The wound is almost taken care of." These words made the two of them extremely embarrassed. Yuan thought to herself, "Louise, now I am ready to let go of you and offer him my whole heart." The two held hands tightly, right here at Black Manor, the place where you brought me. At the castle, the servants and butler were busily cleaning. They chattered excitedly. What's being moved in? The lady had ordered some food and work clothes. Yuan carefully scooped food into a bowl. After that, she delivered the food and left. The room door was wide open. Clad had been carefully bandaged, and he lay listlessly on the bed. Yuan's voice drifted in. "Your Highness, I've brought your meal." Yuan smiled as she brought the food over.
Claude stopped short, calling out, "Hey, explain why I don't feel any pain." Yuan paused. Seeing she didn't answer, Claude, annoyed, tried to sit up. "Quickly, explain everything." You're still in pain." Yuan quickly put the food aside. "The wound is still there." Yuan sat down and supported him, worriedly saying, "So moving will be very difficult." Claude's face was scrunched up like a monkey's bottom. She offered him the food and said, "I've brought you some food." Seeing his judgmental look, Yuan quickly affirmed, "I made it myself. It's good for someone recovering from an injury." Claude stopped short, expressing, "You don't have to accept it. Don't just accept everything like that. If it hurts, say no." Yuan was bewildered by his words. Now that I think about it, it seems His Highness knows something happens every time he sleeps." She thought of the intimate scene that made her incredibly embarrassed.
Yuan smiled and glanced at Clad. Clad looked at her. Yuan wondered, how can I say no when you're in so much pain? Don't worry too much. I want to too. Doing so also makes me feel relieved. Being in close proximity to Yuan, Clad blushed so hard his face was as red as a tomato. Want to? You know I don't remember anything. Yuan still looked at him with an innocent expression. Seeing him flush, she sadly lowered her head and sighed. Clad was angry, his eyebrows furrowed. The more he thought about her stubbornness, the more irritated he became. Clad wondered, is there any way for me to remember? Yuan stammered, that is beyond my ability. But remembering that day's scene, she fell silent.
Yuan expressed, perhaps it would be easier for you if things remained this way. Seeing her say that, Clad's curiosity gradually subsided. Suddenly, Butler Gustav revealed, that's right, last night you shared a bed with the madam again. Clad froze. He thought about it and helplessly burst out laughing. Huh, really? Butler Gustav added, the madam stayed up all night to take care of you, so it's quite understandable. Clad questioned life. Understandable? He looked at his cleanly bandaged wound, thinking to himself, to be stabbed through and torn open and then just sleeping with someone makes the pain go away? The butler saw Clad deep in thought and wondered, what is he worried about?
Clad innocently asked, why is it only the lady who suffers on those nights? The butler's face went blank upon hearing this. Clad added, you said you always heard her trying to suppress her cries of pain, didn't you? Butler Gustav grumbled, well, perhaps the two of you aren't compatible, or perhaps your highness might not be subtle enough, or... Seeing him become increasingly difficult, Gustav broke into a sweat. Perhaps both. Fearing it would affect the two of them, Gustav suggested, your highness is currently unwell, so it would be better to limit it. I've seen quite a few kings die from overexertion in bed, and if a woman cannot physically endure it, the consequences are similar. Before leaving, the butler further advised, perhaps your highness should try to be a little kinder to the lady, even during the day. This time, Clad truly reconsidered the butler's words. Light streamed in and the food was still on the table, untouched. Clad lay stretched out on the bed, saying, I'm not eating that. Yuan coaxed, please don't be like that, just try a little, I made it myself today. Clad feigned turning his face away. He maintained that attitude for a while. Yuan silently watched him, thinking to herself, perhaps being cold is better than being outright mean. Yuan suggested, if your highness doesn't want it, I'll take it away. Yuan pretended to leave. She curiously glanced at his reaction. As expected, Clad sat up. He spoke up, what, why are you looking at me like that? Yuan smiled, it's just because your highness looks so cute. The room door was still tightly shut. Yuan stood outside, staring at the room before her. Nearby, two maids spoke up hesitantly, one after another. Madam, please don't wait too long. I've worked here for over 3 years, and I've never seen him step out during the day. Do you think he would agree to come out for a walk with us? I've been here for 5 years, and I only saw him for the first time when His Imperial Majesty himself visited. Hearing this, Yuan's own thoughts stirred. A week has passed. His Highness still hasn't accepted my proposal. Clad glanced at Yuan and asked, come to think of it, how old are you? She immediately replied, extremely embarrassed, I'm of age, thank you, sir.
Upon hearing it, Clad's face twisted into a grimace, making Yuan break out in a cold sweat. Is he getting restless? She raised a hand to cover her mouth, pondering for a moment. Then Yuan spoke with a cheerful smile. Take a walk with me, and I'll tell you. As soon as the words left her mouth, Clad immediately glared at her, gritting his teeth in anger. Are you trying to bargain with me? Yuan was utterly flustered. Is it that serious? If you don't like it, I'll go alone. But Clad from behind continued to roar. Answer me, who gave you the right to set conditions? Hearing this, Yuan drummed back, her face indifferent. I'm only suggesting it as part of your recovery process. If you don't want to go outside, at least walk around the bedroom. As soon as the words left her mouth, Clad sighed and remarked, you've truly lost your mind. However, Yuan unexpectedly smiled confidently. Is there any wife who fears her husband? I'm always outside, so you can come out whenever you wish. Actually, perhaps you aren't that curious. If you stay cooped up in your room just because of your face, then I can understand. But if I have to bear the brunt of that pain, that tormenting devil, then I will be the one to carry it. If we are to become a true family, I at least want to alleviate the pain evident on your face. Then perhaps you will step out of the room and feel the sunlight again. Suddenly, someone unexpectedly called out, Madam.
Seeing this, Yuan quickly replied, Sir Lancelot, making the other person blush and quickly correct her. Please just call me Lancelot, madam. First, let me thank you, madam. Clad looked much happier. Hearing this, Yuan also gave a forced smile. Since I arrived at this mansion, Clad's complexion has visibly improved. Before, even talking to others bothered him. At most, he would give a slight nod. But now he talks much more. Before that, Lancelot had been constantly trying to coax the other person. Hey, your friend is here. Aren't you even going to glance at him? He often used his eyes to say no and commanded with a nod of his chin. These words made Yuan smile faintly. He understands him well, doesn't he? At the same time, Lancelot continued to speak.
He has mastered the art of subtle scolding, but what can I do? As his only friend, I have to endure it. Women in the capital line up to see me, yet I'm wasting my youth in this gloomy place just to keep him company. Of course he's ill and thus sensitive, but having someone who understands that and brings life to the mansion is truly a great comfort. Hearing this, Yuan immediately fell into thought. Initially, I only used his pain as an excuse to stay here.
Lancelot crossed his arms and said sternly, "But Clad once told you not to wait for him, and you must be bored without anyone to talk to." As soon as he finished speaking, Yuan explained without hesitation, "Even though the household staff are busy, they are still very kind. Besides, a mansion this large takes all my time just to explore. However, there are too few staff for the size of the house, so everyone works extremely hard. I want to help them in any way I can, but every time I try to help, the butler jumps up, and the maids try every way to stop me. Sometimes I wonder who the real master here is. Part of the reason I go to the garden is to wait to take a walk with His Highness, but since he hasn't told me not to, I still do it every day." After hearing this, Lancelot brought a hand to his mouth, smiling with amusement. He closed his eyes and mused. "Now, the person who once panicked when I opened the curtains stands by the window looking out every day." At this point, Yuan unexpectedly continued, "Even so, it would be better if His Highness would step outside. The wound is too severe. If he doesn't walk around regularly, he will have a permanent limp."
Lancelot lowered his gaze slightly. "Have you visited the West Annex yet?" Yuan also wondered bewildered. The West Annex? Lancelot immediately pointed in one direction. It was a small castle in the distance. Yuan fell into contemplation. "No, I've only been to the East Annex, where the party was held. Actually, I haven't even fully explored the main building yet." Hearing this, Lancelot slowly said, "The West Annex used to be Clad's hideout. This residence was originally the villa of the late Emperor and Empress. That side belonged to him, and Apollini later grew up there." Yuan couldn't help but turn to look at the other person, her mind full of thoughts. Lancelot's mood wasn't great either, but he immediately smiled at Yuan. She spoke with a hint of worry. "I once saw a dog near that area from a distance." As soon as she finished speaking, Lancelot quickly explained, "That dog was adopted by Clad when he was little," making Yuan a little incredulous. "Really?" Lancelot just smiled and added, "Yes, I don't know if you'll believe it, but he was quite cute and gentle when he was little." Yuan then confided, "I thought it was a servant's dog. I've never heard him mention or ask about it. Perhaps he doesn't like dogs anymore because it's been so long." After hearing this, Lancelot looked into the distance. If he didn't care, he wouldn't have kept it here, would he? An image of young Clad appeared beside the puppy. He smiled happily with it. Returning to reality, Lancelot stood opposite Yuan and continued, "Talking more makes things much more interesting. Now I understand why Clad started talking more." Yuan quickly said, "Have a safe trip back, Lancelot." Immediately, Lancelot turned his head, a bright smile on his face. "I hope to hear soon that Clad has stepped out. I have a feeling that if anyone can do it, it will be the lady." At a blue-gray palace, as carriages stopped one after another in front of the house, Count Pelias's face darkened. He thought of his partners. "These hot-headed nobles are bleeding me dry day by day. Do you know how much money I've poured into this? I'm a VIP. I pay extra because I'm a special guest. They don't even bother to send a letter in advance. Where did you learn your manners? If Yuan returns, this miserable life will finally end." Count Pelias's eyes widened, his voice echoing throughout the building as he yelled, "Frederick!" Meanwhile, Frederick was speechless as he watched two dogs wreaking havoc in his room. They wouldn't stop messing around, mouths agape, tongues lolling out in excitement as they ran wildly, and Count Pelias kept cursing, "Frederick, you stupid brute! How many times have I told you that doing nothing is the best way to help your father?" However, he immediately retorted, "But you told me to bring them, father." No sooner had he finished speaking, Count Pelias couldn't contain his anger and roared, "Bringing them is fine, but you could have left them in the kennel or somewhere else. Who told you to drag them straight into my laboratory?" On the table were countless surgical instruments. Regina's eyes narrowed slightly in displeasure. Standing next to Count Pelias, she said, "Father, what exactly do you intend to do with these stray dogs?" Still fuming, he immediately retorted, "Of course, I brought them here because I have a use for them." From behind, Regina, with her arms crossed helplessly, questioned, "Don't tell me you're going to experiment on them." Hearing this, Count Pelias quickly slammed the door shut and yelled, "Both of you, get out!" Gritting his teeth continuously, he began to pull at his hair and scratch his head, tormenting himself. Damn it, why is Yuan still clinging to that deposed crown prince? If she were here, she could at least help the family prosper. Instead, she's taking care of discarded trash, throwing away her future like a shameful joke. In the past, I even injured myself so that Yuan would endure pain to test all sorts of medicines.
All the formulas I've come up with are now in Yuan's head, and I can't even run experiments anymore. Experiments on living people? That requires the Emperor's approval, and who knows what rumors would spread during that process. In the end, the only test subjects left are these wild animals. My God, you wild dog! Yuan! Yuan! Hurry up! Take this pain away! But Count Pelliers was met only with silence. At that, he became even more furious. Damn it, Yuan Pelliers! Meanwhile, Regina, standing outside, was also angry. It's always about Yuan. A memory resurfaced. A quiet woman asked, "Regina, has your father ever called you for work?" Immediately, Regina shot a murderous glare. Suddenly, Countess Pellier spoke up unexpectedly. "Hey, Regina, here you are. Come here, quickly." After hearing her ask, "What is it now?" the other person gradually calmed down. "Don't talk back, girl." Then the image of a luxurious, elegant burgundy dress appeared. Countess Pellier stood behind, admiring it, her eyes sparkling with admiration. "This precious dress has come to you with your name on it. Can you believe it? Are you planning to meet a marquis or some faction?"
Meanwhile, the attendant on the opposite side simply bowed low in silence. He slowly explained, "This is a secret gift from the second prince of Euphrates. More details are in this letter." Seeing this, Regina was a little surprised. "The second prince of Euphrates? The crown prince sent it to you. It seems he's inviting you to the upcoming royal play." Countess Pellies exclaimed repeatedly, oh my goodness." At the same time, Count Pellies walked out and unhappily asked, "Why is it so noisy?" Hearing this, she quickly called out, "Dear, haven't I told you? At the party, the crown prince couldn't take his eyes off our Regina." However, the other party still seemed not to understand. "What nonsense are you talking about?"
Then Countess Pellies finally exclaimed, "The crown prince sent an invitation to Regina along with a luxurious dress, which was a marriage proposal." Hearing this, Regina also let out a sigh of relief. "Father, do you see? This is the true daughter of this family." While the other two continued to be excited, they hastily grabbed some high-end jewelry before anyone else could notice. "Excellent," Count Pellies murmured. "How fortunate. Who knows if the crown prince is fickle, or if Blanico favor will bring good or bad fortune, but either way, this is an opportunity to draw the attention of the nobility to us." Elsewhere, Clad suddenly spoke up. "Butler?" Immediately, Gustav, who was carrying a plate of food, replied, "Yes, your highness."
Clad didn't look at the other person, speaking up. "What's wrong with breakfast today?" Seeing this, Gustav was a little bewildered, his mouth agape. His Highness usually complained or skipped meals entirely, didn't he? But lately, the young lady has always prepared breakfast herself. "No, young lady, you don't need to do that. I want to cook for His Highness for a little longer." Anyway, someone else cooked today, so that was the difference. It seems the young lady's cooking truly suits His Highness's taste. The way His Highness immediately noticed was very subtle. At this moment, Clad immediately asked, "Did I sleep with her again last night?" Gustav replied with a hint of embarrassment, "I apologize, yes." Suddenly, Clad broke out in a cold sweat. "How old is Yuan Pellies, exactly?" As soon as the words left his mouth, Gustav replied without hesitation, "I believe she is 4 years younger than His Highness." Hearing this, Clad could only let out a sigh. He had a headache, pressing his hand to his forehead. So it was the right age. That innocent face made him wonder. But that changed nothing. She was still the type of person who would sleep with someone and then say it was because she liked them, even in absurd circumstances. The bigger problem was that he remembered nothing about those nights. After a moment of contemplation, Clad asked once more, "Where is she now?" Gustav looked puzzled. "Who do you mean, your highness?" "The crow. Naturally, the wife of the deposed crown prince." The sky was clear blue, the sun golden. A voice called out from behind, "Madam!" Hille seemed a little hurried. "You could have gone herb gathering with me." Hearing this, Yuan was a little puzzled. But Professor Hille needs to be by His Highness's side. Besides, these aren't for Professor Hille to share. This is a useful herb that can disinfect wounds and even be used for cleansing. At this moment, Hille slowly approached and observed carefully. "So what do you intend to do with this pile of cleansing herbs?" Yuan shyly lowered her face. "Well, can you keep a secret for me?"
I plan to mix these ingredients together to create a special solution. I think it should be enough to clean the entire West Wing. I don't know if your highness has ever noticed, but at this moment, Hill unexpectedly crazed. "That's truly a brilliant idea. If it works, it could even wipe everything clean. Wait, what about adding a bit of tree sap? I could ask Saul, the stable master, to help make it." Hearing this, Yuan didn't hesitate to flash a joyful smile. Then she calmly continued, "I also asked Mr. Majereng to make a brush that's a bit larger than a toothbrush." As soon as she finished speaking, Hill praised again. "You're truly quick-witted. I'll go to the pharmacy to pick out some suitable herbs. I'll be right back." Upon hearing this, Yuan immediately replied, "Thank you." Talking with Professor Hill was always easy, just like chatting with a friend. Just then, the room door unexpectedly creaked. Clad lowered his gaze to look at the person standing below. Simultaneously, Yuan could only stare at him, eyes wide and cold sweat trickling. Then, without a word, he walked inside. Seeing this, she couldn't help but break into a radiant, happy smile.
Yuan stated plainly, I'll be back here and we'll come up at sunset. The sky was slowly turning to dusk. Yuan stood before Clad, saying, I heard you walked around a lot in the bedroom today. You must have been very bored without me by your side, weren't you? This made him a little confused, so he asked back, why would I be bored? Yuan smiled brightly again, saying, You're always watching me, aren't you? Come closer. Immediately, Clad's eyes narrowed slightly, observing her. Clad quickly turned his face away. I'm keeping an eye on you in case you foolishly do something to cause trouble. Hearing this, Yuan broke out in a cold sweat. Right. Then she noticed something right before her eyes. Clad's wounds. A train of thoughts sparked in Yuan's mind. Just like every other night, suddenly Clad unexpectedly asked, What did you talk about with the royal physician? What did you say to that quack with glasses? These words left Yuan a little bewildered and confused. After a moment, she said without hesitation, It's a secret. This made Clad furious. What? However, Yuan remained unfazed and explained, It's a secret. I haven't even told Hina or the butler yet. Instantly, Clad angrily asked, Servants and the butler? Seeing this, Yuan quickly stepped forward to remind him, You shouldn't move so vigorously. But the other person was more concerned with her secret. Why are you hiding something from the royal physician? What makes you trust him? Tell me now. At this, Yuan immediately stiffened, recalling a few scenarios. Actually, I wanted to clean up the West Wing beautifully. Clad interrupted. Always doing useless things. Stop it. It's really nothing major, Yuan said, but Clad continued to press. Then tell your master. I'll decide for myself whether it's important or not. Helplessness was evident in both their eyes. Yuan broke out in a cold sweat, gritting her teeth as she asked, Are you jealous? Hearing this, Clad quickly sneered. Jealous? Jealous, you say? Before Yuan could say anything, Clad quickly grabbed her hand. Since you keep calling yourself family all the time, let me warn you about one thing. Don't trust anything that comes from the imperial palace. Doctors, nobles, no one in this building can be trusted. Instantly, Yuan immediately looked stunned. But even if the servants here are clumsy, they are all very kind.
They were worried that you might leave one day. As soon as you tried to integrate a little, they quickly responded with more. They feared you, but at the same time pitied you. And honestly, perhaps I did too. Suddenly, Clad asked again, Do you understand? Don't give your heart away. Hearing this, Yuan slowly replied, You're saying this because you're worried about me, aren't you? Or do you not trust me either? Clad stared at the girl in front of him, saying nothing. At the same time, Yuan calmly spoke, It's already dark, Your Highness. Please take your medicine. Hearing this, Clad didn't hesitate to ask directly, Do you still want to share a bed with someone like me? Someone who neither worries about you nor trusts you? Yuan answered without hesitation, Yes, which made him extremely puzzled. Why?
Yuan suddenly threw himself into the other's arms. What wife would want to see her husband suffer? Even if Your Highness doesn't care about me at all, that changes nothing. So please don't ask me why anymore. All that you have done for me and the pain I would never have had to endure if it weren't for you. The moments I once mistakenly thought you were cruel. Perhaps all of it was my mistake. So if you cannot trust me, it doesn't matter. Because if I can alleviate even a little of your pain, that is enough for me. The next morning, Hilla took His Highness's pulse. His Highness spoke with great concern. Hilla reassured him. Perhaps because you slept well, your complexion looks fresh, and there's nothing particularly amiss. Before dinner, I will bring the newly compounded pain medication. Clad replied warily. You say that every day.
As soon as he finished speaking, Hilla was a little surprised. What? Clad sternly ordered. Sit down there and write down anything that's different from usual. Don't talk, just shut your mouth and cover your ears. Don't wander around aimlessly. Hearing this, Hilla looked utterly bewildered. Why are you suddenly making me do things you've never asked for before? At the same time, his entire body suddenly trembled continuously. Hilla sat at the table, pen in hand, pondering. Perhaps I should take on the task of decorating the garden? Suddenly, Clad spoke up. Spring is coming soon anyway. He lowered his head and thought. Seeing this, Gustav was also stunned. Then he slowly asked, Do I need to provide you with the relevant budget plan? Immediately, Clad replied without hesitation, Yes, do as you wish. Hearing this, Gustav approached Clad. The second part is marked as the detailed budget and construction for the garden and the exterior of the mansion. This is the first time in 10 years that His Highness has asked me to bring work, right after he fell ill. Until now, I have always been indebted to the Duke's brothers. Since the young lady entered the mansion, many things have changed completely. At this point, Clad unexpectedly asked again, What is she doing? These words made Gustav a little confused. Who are you referring to? Clad wore a sorrowful expression. The young lady. No, just forget it. Don't say anything. They're probably just meddling in something again, or pretending to help and then causing a fuss. Meanwhile, at the castle, Hina, holding a spray nozzle, spoke up, My lady, my lady. As soon as she finished speaking, Yuan immediately turned around, smiling, and said, This is wonderful, isn't it? I'll try to clean it myself a bit starting today. Seeing this, Hina was a little flustered. Let me help. But Yuan seemed not to need it. It's all right, I'll do it myself. This made Hina a little curious. Why, my lady? Immediately, Yuan answered frankly without hesitation. You and the other servants are always busy with work at the mansion. How can I make everyone do this extra work?
After hearing this, Hina's eyes widened, and she stammered, "Well," at the same time, Yuan continued, "I'm just treating it as exercise. I want to clean everything myself, make this place beautiful, and then present it to His Highness as a gift. Do you understand what I mean?" Hearing this, Hina clutched the hem of her clothes and said, "But don't overdo it. Squatting for too long will hurt your knees." Yuan quickly asked back, "Who told you that, and where did you hear it?"
Hannah immediately put on a sympathetic expression. "From my grandmother." As soon as she finished speaking, Yuan was a little puzzled. "Is your grandmother here too? These young maids truly have a lot of secrets. There must still be work pending at the main mansion. Hurry back." She had now reached the 20th tile. Although she had intentionally concocted a cleaning solution, it was harder than she thought. Suddenly there was a growl from behind. Yuan saw the gray wolf dog and instinctively called out, "Oliver." Of course, there was no way it would open up so quickly. She didn't know what it was intently staring at. A tightly closed door frame appeared before her eyes. Her eyes were full of contemplation. Yuan called out once more, "Oliver, your master may be a bit hot-tempered, but he likes you very much." At this moment her teeth gently clenched. She tried to explain, "If he didn't like you, he wouldn't have kept you by his side. His Highness's longtime friend once said so you can trust it." Meanwhile, Clad suddenly opened his eyes. He lay motionless on the bed, his hand subtly moving to feel.
Clad seemed a little disappointed. She didn't come today either. Why are mornings always so busy? Or perhaps she doesn't want to run into me in the morning. Just then, Clad caught sight of Yuan. Yuan unexpectedly turned to look at her. Clad's eyebrows also furrowed slightly. Seeing this, Yuan immediately smiled. "I've been busy since early morning, and I noticed 2 gardeners I've never seen before. Do you know, in winter they plant flowers that will bloom in summer, so everyone is busy. When the snow melts, the garden looks bare, but thanks to them I feel more at ease. If your Highness permits, may I offer them some suggestions for the garden?" Hearing this, Clad without a word reached out his hand towards Yuan. She trembled with fear, her eyes tightly shut. But contrary to her worries, Clad only lightly touched Yuan's forehead with his fingertip. He slowly said, "You don't need to ask permission for that. You don't need approval for every little thing like that." As soon as the words left his lips, Clad seemed to relax somewhat. Yuan thought, "Really? Those seemingly indifferent words, yet they carve deep into my heart. Perhaps he means that I have a place here. Could it be that he no longer hates me?"
Yuan lowered her gaze, lost in thought, wanting to make sure that His Highness also yearned for a normal life by her side. Then she suddenly said, "In the West Wing, there's a wolf-like dog. They say its name is Oliver, a dog you've raised since it was young." Hearing this, Clad unexpectedly barked in a stern voice, "Hey, don't cross the line." Seeing this, Yuan was immediately startled. "Yes?" Scene change. Hina stood with her hands on her hips, saying, "Tomorrow is my payday. I'll return all the money for the medicine then." However, Yuan, seeing the table, unceremoniously cut off her train of thought. "Forget it, Hina. It's really nothing." This made Hina immediately explain, "In Loxenhart, even cough syrup is many times more expensive than in other regions, young lady." Yuan, with a soft gaze, immediately lowered her voice. "That's my goodwill. If you insist on paying, I'll be sad." At the same time, Hina's face also grew somber. Meanwhile, Yuan continued to calmly write on her papers with a quill pen. Suddenly, she opened her eyes wide, as Hina had unexpectedly moved closer to Yuan and said, "Thank you, young lady. Thanks to the medicine you prepared, my younger siblings are healthy and don't get minor illnesses, and neither do the other maids."
"We are truly fortunate that you have come here." Upon hearing this, Yuan felt a little flustered, her cheeks flushing. Hina quickly regained her composure. "Then at least, please accept this small gift, won't you? It's nothing luxurious, but this type of tea is famous in the region. My siblings insisted on sending you something. It's made from a type of grass that grows through frozen ground in winter, then dried and brewed into tea. Drinking it fills your stomach, and for the poor trying to survive winter, there's nothing better. And the flavor is rich and savory, much better than one would imagine. They call it stomach-filling tea." Hearing this, Yuan couldn't help but laugh in appreciation. What a straightforward name. "Tell your siblings I like it very much." Immediately, Hina was also overjoyed. "Yes, lady." At the same time, a thought suddenly crossed Yuan's mind. "It's really fragrant and warms the stomach, too." Across from her, Hina unexpectedly spoke up. "But lady, have you had a quarrel with His Highness? You skipped breakfast." As soon as the words left her mouth, Yuan slowly placed the teacup on the table and explained, "I've made you worried. We didn't quarrel. I just asked His Highness a question that might have been out of line." This made Hina a little displeased. "You are his wife, lady. No question is ever out of line." At this, Yuan slowly confessed, "But I still know very little about His Highness, about this castle, and even about Oliver. Asking directly would be best, but the situation doesn't allow it." As soon as the words were spoken, Hina instinctively called out, "Lady!"
Yuan quickly looked at the other person with puzzled eyes. She called out Hina again, while the other person hesitated anxiously. "I've never told this."
Hina's eyes lit up with determination. She admitted without hesitation, "But I am the granddaughter of Lady Margaret, who was once Prince Clad's wet nurse." Upon hearing this, Yuan could only break out in a cold sweat. "What?" Meanwhile, Hina continued, "I cannot say anything about the late Empress, as that is forbidden, but regarding Oliver, or this mansion, I can tell you." Apollini ran after him, calling out, "Brother, let me come too." Crown Prince Clad Euphrates turned back and said with a smile, "Hold my hand tightly, Apollini." Princess Apollini Euphrates, with her beautiful appearance and kindness towards her subjects. To the Emperor and Empress, both children were priceless treasures. At just 7 years old, Clad had already taken the entrance exam for Eucholoria Academy and ranked first.
His natural physique and innate strength helped him receive many early admission offers. Everyone acknowledged his talent. The people loved Crown Prince Clad Euphrates. For example, portraits of the Crown Prince from his 10th birthday celebration were copied by unknown artists and sold like hotcakes. Newspapers released on his birthday sold out within a day. Some people held on to the Crown Prince's portraits tightly, while others clutched newspapers featuring his image to their chests. It all came so naturally, but those glorious days did not last. Clad carried the girl on his back and said, "Do you see, Apollini? My mother, Empress Eleonore, gave me this Tibochinaya flower for my birthday. They call it the Flower of Glory. I'm so happy I can't even describe it. Next year, for your birthday, Apollini will." But the girl on his back had already fallen asleep. Seeing this, Clad just smiled gently. "Already asleep, are we?" At the same time, a man rushed over. His mouth incessantly called out, "Your Highness, Your Highness, Your Highness." Clad looked back, utterly puzzled. "Uncle?" Meanwhile, the man wore a bewildered expression. "Your Highness, now is not the time." Hearing this, Clad quickly reminded him, "Please lower your voice. Apollini just dozed off." The man obeyed, saying, "His Majesty and Her Majesty, their lives are in danger." As soon as the words left his mouth, Clad's eyes widened in disbelief. He stood motionless and asked, "What?"
That day was the second day of the Great Hunt, presided over by Emperor Alexel, Clad's father. The monster hunting festival was held to eliminate fierce beasts and monsters that often descended upon villages in winter. As this was a matter of national importance, both the emperor and empress always personally participated, and it was also an occasion for the nobility to demonstrate their loyalty. Anyone who brought back proof of having slain a wild beast or monster threatening civilians would receive a great reward. Not only gold and silver, but even royal territories could be bestowed. Thus, every year the hunt burned with fervent passion. This year, it was originally intended to commence merely as a prayer ritual for national peace and prosperity. Clad frantically looked at the crowd in front of him and called out, "Father!" But he was immediately stopped. "You cannot approach, Your Highness." The servant wore a worried expression. "The scene is too tragic. Please turn away." From behind, a blond man also added, "Your Highness, Your Majesty, the Empress." That person immediately burst into tears.
With a tone of profound sorrow, Queen Eleanor has passed away. She collapsed with signs of poisoning, and on the way back to the palace for treatment, it was already too late. Hearing this, Clad immediately cast his eyes down, staring at the ground. He stood silently, saying nothing, his demeanor somber. At the same time, the messenger added that during this period, Grand Duke Igor's uncle would temporarily handle state affairs, and you needn't worry. That evening, the moon cast a faint light through the window. Igor forced a smile. "Don't be troubled, Clad. I'll be here by your side. I hear you haven't slept a wink all week. Now go and rest." However, Clad remained standing with his back to him. The smile on Igor's face slowly faded. He immediately sneered, "You insolent child."
Hearing this, Clad quickly looked at Igor with a hateful gaze. The two faced each other for a long moment. That night, in the imperial bedchamber, surrounded by imperial physicians, Emperor Euphrates breathed his last. Meanwhile, Apollini, lying on the bed, innocently asked, "The hunt is over, isn't it? But why haven't father and mother returned yet?" Clad could only urge, "Go to sleep, Apollini. I'll sing you a lullaby." But Apollini persisted. "They don't even let us go outside. How much longer do we have to be confined in Luxenhart?" With those words, Clad offered a promising smile. "Tomorrow, I'll take you to the garden." Just then, Nanny slowly approached and called out, "Your Highness, you haven't rested for a single moment since earlier. Please go inside and rest. I will stand guard for the princess." Hearing this, Clad quickly replied, "Thank you, Nanny." Her face was etched with worry. Nanny took his hands and reassured him, "You must remain strong, Your Highness." Clad also replied with a gentle smile, "It's all right. Don't worry about me." It was still a long and endless night.
Clad walked back to his room alone, his eyes filled with unspoken thoughts. He stirred slightly, wondering what to do from now on. Throughout the funeral, his uncle had looked at him as if he were a worm. Being brought to the throne was not a good sign either, especially with only 1 week left until his coronation. If he couldn't bear the burden, even Apollini would. Clad's eyes widened. He looked down at the scenery below, observing countless purple flowers in full bloom. Suddenly, tears streamed unexpectedly from his eyes. Clad covered his face with his hands and choked out, "Father, Mother, I miss you both." It was still a gloomy night, and Clad was lying in bed. At that moment, a masked figure carrying a sword approached. Without hesitation, he raised his sword, preparing to strike. Outside, upon hearing the commotion, Nanny felt uneasy. Her face grew even more panicked after a desperate scream echoed. Nanny rushed to open the door, calling out, "Your Highness." Clad, clutching a sword, sat on the ground in a panic, explaining fearfully, He suddenly tried to kill me." Nanny quickly rushed to check on him. "Thank heavens, you're safe. There's no time to be stunned. Your Highness must get up quickly." But Clad seemed to be severely injured. He said, "My thigh, it's a deep cut." Hearing this, Nanny didn't hesitate to hoist Clad onto her back. He immediately didn't understand, asking, "What exactly happened, Nanny? Please say something." Clad mumbled, "If it's truly dangerous, then Apollini is in even greater peril than I am. Damn it, I'm bleeding too much. I'm about to faint, Nanny." Outside the castle, flickering lights appeared, and flames gradually spread throughout the building.
Rebels attacked Cielo's imperial palace. That night, only a few days remained before Clad Euphorus was to be crowned emperor. They stormed the annex where Clad was staying in the blink of an eye. Fire erupted from the east wing, quickly spreading to the great hall. The snow could do nothing to extinguish the flames, even causing the ghostly fire to spread faster. Margaret, the nanny, carried Clad on her back, even though his weight was too much for an elderly woman.
Clad groggily opened his eyes, hearing Apollini's incessant screams. "Brother, take me with you!" She kept banging her hands on the glass, wailing. Apollini's eyes were wide with terror, her voice frantic. "Brother, don't leave me behind! Don't abandon me!" Meanwhile, upon hearing this, Clad immediately called out, "Apollini!" Nanny quickly turned her head, exclaiming, "Princess!" Hearing this, a guard immediately urged, "Nanny, hurry, run! We will hold him off here. We will ensure the princess is safely escorted out. We have sent word to Marquis Rev. Reinforcements will arrive soon." Suddenly, something shone directly onto the ground. Seeing this, the guards hastily urged, "Go now! Their target is the prince!" At the same time, Apollini continued to plead, "Brother, Nanny, please, don't leave me behind! Brother!" The sky outside the window had darkened. Cold water was splashed on Clad's face. Then he quickly awoke, staring at the corpse before him. It was Nanny, lying motionless on the cold floor. A sinister voice slowly called out, "Clad Euphorus." The tall figure of Igor suddenly appeared. He smiled sinisterly and said, "I have waited for this day for a long time. Your father stole everything I loved, and now I will destroy everything he cherishes. And now only you and this house remain." Hearing this, Clad quickly furrowed his brows and asked, "Apollini, what have you done to the child?" Immediately he received an extremely cold reply. "It's dead. It died miserably, begging me for mercy. I had thought of letting it live. After all, it was just a child. But I couldn't stand noisy brats. The Euphorus treasure. Elixel's treasure. What about you, Clad Euphorus? Will you beg?" Upon hearing this, Clad's eyes went wide with hatred, showing only the whites. Meanwhile, Igor, standing opposite, remained extremely smug. "If you beg skillfully enough, perhaps I will let you live." Returning to the present, Hina continued, "That insolent wretch. I remember everything clearly." The image of Clad being struck by Igor's sword flashed before her eyes. Hina recounted the events in great bewilderment. "I was hidden beneath the floor and saw everything. The sword should have split him in two, but his body didn't separate at all. Instead, the dark energy swirling around the sword was absorbed into him." When the Mad Emperor saw this, his eyes nearly popped out of their sockets, and he stared at the cursed dark sword for a long time. Then he looked down at His Highness, whose body was charred black as if burned alive, and laughed with an even more distorted voice. "So this is a fate worse than death. The Euphorus treasure has now turned into a black crow." After the Mad Emperor left, Marquis Rev searched everywhere, inviting physicians, mages, witches, and even dark sorcerers. What she saw now was the best result they could achieve.
Since that day, the master had driven away all the servants who had served for so many years. Only those from the former emperor's era remained. Most of the people in the manor died that day. Those who survived only did so because they were attending to the funeral arrangements. Even though the master was cold towards them, they couldn't bring themselves to leave, because they still remembered the kind, benevolent boy he once was. Having been so painfully betrayed by his family, he couldn't place his trust in us. All we could do was grieve. 10 years can change everything, but the master was never like this before. He has simply changed. I hope he will stay for a long time, young lady." Upon hearing this, Yuan, seated on the chair with her hands on her lap, quietly admitted, "I also want things to be better, but sometimes I feel as if His Highness truly hates me." No sooner had the words left her mouth than Hina quickly leaned forward, asking in surprise, "What are you saying, young lady?" The butler said that recently His Highness has been opening the curtains during the day, just to look at the garden. Is that all? Sometimes he even opens the windows.
Yuan looked embarrassed, her cheeks flushing as she replied, "Of course, he must feel very stifled." At that moment, Henna seemed a little sulky. "He's changing, you know. If he hated the young lady, he would have sent her away already." A thought immediately sprang into Yuan's mind. Is he keeping me by his side just to escape his pain? If he didn't want the young lady, he wouldn't have kept her in the first place.
But at that very moment, Sir Lancelot's words, though she knew they weren't directed at her, still lingered in her mind, like a hidden sweet treat she couldn't stop secretly savoring. After hearing everything from Henna, sometimes she felt a sudden urge to take care of him, but the past could not be erased, just like the birthday present her cousin stole when she was a child could never be gotten back.
Yuan gently knocked on the room door. She wore a sorrowful expression. Currently, she only wished to make his lonely appearance a little happier, so that he could feel joy just for having survived. Yuan looked at the empty plate and said, "I will start participating more in drawing water, just to get out and breathe some fresh air." Hearing this, Clad slowly wiped his mouth and replied, "That's up to you." At this point, Yuan revealed her true intention. "It would be great if your highness could also come along. I will return after sunset today." Scene change. Gustav, drenched in sweat, said in a strained voice, "Madam, no matter what, the master of this house needs to maintain his dignity. If you participate in such chores, you will have to share a carriage with the servants, and that would not be very appropriate." Hearing this, Yuan immediately raised her hand to explain, "I'm just going out for some fresh air. There's no need for a private carriage." At the same time, Hina rushed over to add, "We will take very good care of things. Please don't worry." But Gustav remained tense. "That's not the issue, but since His Highness has given permission, it's difficult for me to stop it. If you want to breathe fresh air, there are still many other ways." As soon as the words left her lips, Yuan replied with a gentle smile, "I only like where the water cart goes. I can't be bothered to make 2 trips. One time is enough." Outside, the foliage was still a lush green. Henna waved goodbye to Yuan. "Please return safely." A moment later, Yuan slowly walked to a high mound. She quietly sat down and said in a low voice, "I'm here, sister. If it weren't to see you, I could actually just stay cooped up in the Black Manor forever. My need for fresh air is just an excuse." At Pellier's manor, even stepping into the garden is difficult, but living in the Black Manor is much freer. They say His Highness has barely been outside for the past 10 years. He must feel very stifled. Memories suddenly flooded back. Louise, standing behind her, unexpectedly called out, "Yuan, since Auntie will probably be home late today, why don't we go play in the garden?" Immediately, Yuan refused without hesitation. "No, I don't want to go outside." This left Louise utterly puzzled. "Why not? You used to love looking at flowers." Hearing this, Yuan's eyes welled up with tears of resentment. "Everyone teases me for being dirty. I don't want to go anywhere." As soon as she finished speaking, Louise said with great confidence, "What's there to worry about? I'll wash you clean." Yuan once again fell into fear. "But will we get scolded for wasting water?"
Immediately, Louise lowered her voice and spoke softly. "We'll just use it secretly. After all, it's water I drew myself. What's there to worry about? I'll make you so clean that you won't be ashamed, even if you meet a prince." Back to the harsh reality, Yuan didn't know when tears had started flowing. Perhaps His Highness also avoided the garden because of his face, as even a speck of coal dust was enough to make Yuan hate going outside. "Then I must ensure His Highness's face is clean even during the day. I will try my best to erase every trace of that hateful emperor from His Highness. Watch me, sister." Elsewhere, in a room, Lancelot spoke up, seemingly very excited. "What is this? Clad worrying about matters in the mansion? The sun must have risen in the west." Seeing this, Clad, slightly annoyed, turned to Gustav and asked, "Butler, why didn't you announce we had guests?" Upon hearing this, he replied frankly, "Because you didn't inherit Loxenhart. Legally, it belongs to us, you know."
At this moment, Clad asked without hesitation, "You're quite the man, aren't you, behaving so petty?" Lancelot still laughed heartily, replying, "You're the petty one. How long has it been since we exchanged such meaningless words?" "Oh, right. I saw someone working in the garden. So your request was finally granted? You once yearned to tend to that garden." Upon hearing that, Gustav immediately smiled and explained, "No, that was His Highness's idea." Then he hummed a few tunes to himself, leaving Lancelot utterly bewildered behind him. A moment later, Lancelot turned to the blond man. "Clad, it saddens me to see you've changed so much. You stand proudly under the sun." His eyes widened as he observed closely. Now, Lancelot said, utterly astonished, "Your face." But Clad seemed to be trying to evade the topic. "There's no need to bring it up again. I know how ugly it is."
Upon hearing this, Lancelot's face fell as he rummaged for something in his clothes. He immediately pointed at a handheld mirror, ignoring Clad's sarcastic remark. "You're still secretly carrying a hand mirror?" Lancelot retorted sharply. "No, I mean his face. Look, your forehead has brightened considerably. The physician said your wife is particularly focused on pain relief, and it seems the therapy is progressing very well. I heard your physician was once the valedictorian of the academy. If your wife could study with someone like that, she must have turned the whole academy upside down if she had ever studied there, right?" Meanwhile, Clad continued to caress his forehead. Seeing this, Lancelot quickly reassured him. "Come on, don't make me uncomfortable. Why the gloomy look? You're always cooped up in your room. Are you brooding over something?" Hearing this, Clad looked a bit awkward, his mouth slightly agape, sweat trickling down. He lightly touched his cheek. "How can we reduce the pain when we sleep together?"
Upon hearing this, Lancelot froze for a few seconds. Then he pointed at Clad and asked, "It's been over a month and she's still in pain? The butler said your married life seems to be going very well." Clad hastily explained, "I never said I was talking about myself." However, Lancelot ignored Clad's words, no longer needing to guess. Even if you don't explicitly force her because she's your wife, coercion isn't always violence. Hearing this, Clad's face darkened. "You're truly useless, only good at blabbering." But Lancelot continued to add, "Your problem is your sharp, cold gaze that makes her unable to lift her head. Your venomous tongue has never known or uttered a gentle word. Forget everything else."
If you can't treat her kindly at night, then at least do it during the day. Doesn't she deserve you to make that much effort? Countless images kept flashing in Clad's mind. Nanny, everyone, and Apollone. His eyes became dark as ink.
Clad lay on the bed, his body covered in wounds, in a critical condition. "I cannot bear to see any more deaths in this mansion. No exceptions, no matter who it is or for what reason. If someone is about to die, get them out of here immediately." Looking at the pile of documents on the table, Hille slowly spoke. "Madam, I regret to say this, but it's an old dog, so trying to treat it would be futile." But Yuan was still incredibly tense. "Even so, is there really nothing more we can do? Anything, any medicine, right away." Hille broke out in a cold sweat. "Medicine and ingredients are very scarce here, and forcing a strong medicine on an old dog would only cause it more pain. I was taught that the wisest thing to do is to be with it as much as possible." Hearing this, Yuan immediately objected. "That's impossible. I just want to buy a little more time so His Highness can go out again, and so he can see Oliver one more time. Is there really no other way?" Suddenly, Hille unexpectedly spoke again. "Because the painkiller we mix is stronger, His Highness's dosage has had to be significantly reduced. This means many ingredients cannot be used for him. How about we try making a painkiller from the remaining ingredients, after removing the components that cannot be used for dogs? At least it would help Oliver in his remaining time. Of course, I will help." As soon as he finished speaking, Yuan immediately replied, "Thank you, Hille." From behind, Henna suddenly called out loudly, "Madam! Oliver!" Hearing this, Yuan quickly turned her head, her face filled with extreme confusion. "What?" Then she hurried away. Yuan stood before the large room's door, her head slightly bowed in thought. Then Yuan softly called out, "Your Highness, they say it wouldn't be unusual if Oliver passed away now. Oliver always lay facing His Highness's room, but they say now it's trying to leave the mansion." As soon as she finished speaking, Clad remained silent for a long while. He called out from inside, "It doesn't want me to see it when it dies."
Immediately, Yuan couldn't help but ask directly, "Aren't you going to see Oliver off? How wonderful it would be if His Highness could accompany them." "I'll be back." Cut 2. The carriage was moving slowly on the sunny road. Hina gently stroked Oliver's fur, letting out a few sobs. Beside her, Hina kept comforting her. "Hina, you'll make yourself sick, but you still can't hide your sadness. It has never gone beyond the fence of the West Wing. Where would it want to go in this condition?" Hearing this, Yuan immediately explained, "I once read in a book that some animals, when close to death, will leave their territory to avoid their owners. His Highness must have thought the same." As soon as he finished speaking, Hina gently wiped away her tears with her hand. But even so, he should have held it one last time. Not being able to be with someone in their final moments is the greatest regret. It's just another scar.
Yuan glanced at the scene before her, deep in thought. People with many scars become weak because of them. Instead of growing stronger, they become even more vulnerable. Meanwhile, the old butler, peeking from outside the door, spoke up, "Your Highness, I am Gustav, and I've brought your dinner." He noticed something unusual about Clad. Seeing him standing pensively by the window, Gustav immediately understood. That's why some wounds never heal, only to be covered by new ones. How unfair. At the same time, heavy snow was falling outside. Yuan hugged herself as she walked down the corridor, her whole body trembling uncontrollably. She lowered her gaze. "It's so cold, I feel like I'm about to catch a cold. After I've seen His Highness to bed, I'll go back and take a bath." She gently opened the large door. Her wide eyes took in the scene before her. Yuan carefully observed Clad's back. At this moment, Yuan's eyes unconsciously grew deep and unfathomable. She slowly reached out her hand towards Clad. Then Yuan boldly hugged Clad from behind. She softly spoke, "Oliver didn't die alone. Hina and I only told him good things, that he was the best dog in the world. His owner will always love and remember him. Was I wrong?" However, Clad still didn't say a word. A moment later, he finally said with concern, "You're completely soaked." Hearing this, Yuan was extremely embarrassed. "I'm sorry, I'm such a mess. I'll go take a bath right away." Immediately, Clad didn't hesitate to remind her, a cold is no laughing matter. He glanced at the person opposite him once more. Clad suddenly took Yuan's hand and ordered, "I told you you'd catch a cold. Go home and rest today." The next morning, looking at the letter on the table, a puzzled voice rang out, "Lady Regina, what is that?" Hearing this, Regina, a little embarrassed, covered her face with a fan and replied, "I'm so absent-minded." Sophia then hesitated. "Is that a handwritten letter from His Highness the Crown Prince?" Hearing this, another person seemed not to believe their eyes. "Really, Lady Regina?" His Highness gave you not only a ball gown for your debut, but also jewelry, hair accessories, and shoes. As soon as the words fell, Sophia next to her widened her eyes. I heard a rumor that you two attend concerts at the capital's music hall every week. Are things progressing between you two lately? Meanwhile, Regina's cheeks were still flushed red. Now you're making me blush.
I can only say that when two people share a close friendship, sometimes some false rumors can emerge. Upon hearing this, the two people standing opposite couldn't help but applaud, their faces full of excitement. The scene shifts. On the table were many pastries, along with the voice of someone saying, "Given the situation, I wonder if Grand Duchess Ariesta's engagement will be called off." Sophia raised her teacup to her mouth and said, "Oh dear, but it can't really be called a broken engagement yet. They haven't even had an engagement ceremony, have they?" As soon as she finished speaking, the girl in the blue dress quickly chimed in. "People always say true love often comes late. Perhaps they weren't meant to be." At this moment, Regina took a sip of tea and thought to herself, Grand Duchess Ariesta. When Igor Euphrates ascended the throne as emperor, Count Dracov succeeded him as Grand Duke of the North. The current Grand Duke is Dracov. Ariesta is his only daughter, and she quickly became a prominent figure in the story, transforming from Countess to Grand Duchess in an instant. Perhaps she's a bit like me. Suddenly, the lady in the blue dress looked a bit confused, wondering, surely His Royal Highness the Crown Prince isn't doing this for Grand Duchess Ariesta's true love, is he? Originally, the Grand Duke was the deposed prince, but she was interrupted by Regina. "Oh dear, Lady Delphina, what? Is there something going on between Grand Duchess Ariesta and the deposed prince?"
Upon hearing this, Delphina slowly explained that originally they had been engaged for a long time, and the two of them were very compatible. Now, that no longer mattered, especially since His Highness had become like that. Grand Duchess Ariesta had once visited him, screamed, and then fled the mansion. That was a well-known story. As soon as the words were out, Regina secretly scoffed. How impolite. Meanwhile, the other person remained perfectly calm. Soon after, rumor spread that the Grand Duchess had become engaged to her cousin, Prince Blanico, but now it seemed that was all wrong, because His Royal Highness the Crown Prince's true love was probably someone else. Upon hearing this, everyone fell silent. After a moment, Apollini suddenly wondered, "Miss Regina, you said you first met him at the wedding anniversary party at Black Manor, didn't you? I mean Prince Blanico." This question made Regina flinch. "That's right," she replied.
Is the deposed prince really that ugly? And what about your cousin? How is the deposed princess doing? An image of Clad with half his face covered appeared. Returning to reality, Regina stood alone with a wild expression. She suddenly glanced at the crowd. These noble young ladies would never have the chance to meet the deposed prince. Every few hours, strange pus would well up, so he always had to clamp something under his chin. If you got close, you'd see thick, dark pus like accumulated sewage. Hearing this, Delphina quickly exclaimed, "Oh my God, that's disgusting." Meanwhile, Regina didn't hesitate to add, "And the smell is truly awful. My poor cousin has to endure wiping away the pus and changing the collection bowl. How much hard work do you think she's ever done? The hardest thing she ever did at the mansion was embroidering handkerchiefs for her father." As soon as she finished speaking, Sophia looked a bit confused. "Don't tell me she's actually taking care of him there. What are the other servants doing?" Regina once again tried to convince her. "It's a difficult place, even for commoners who know little. The servants' clothes are shabby, there aren't many of them, and besides, he's notoriously difficult. Who could stand it?" But Sophia seemed to disagree. "However, I heard those two get along like a couple. This is the first time the deposed prince has completed a wedding, and at the anniversary party, those two." These words made Regina lean back in disbelief. How pitiful. Is it really good that they get along so well, especially with the deposed prince?
Seeing this, everyone froze, speechless. Meanwhile, Regina was finishing her act. Was this a good thing? Surely, even in her imagination, she couldn't bear it. To be frank, you are just a melancholic woman living with monsters, no different from a pitiful wretch, and will never be able to appear in high society. Elsewhere at a magnificent and splendid castle, Yuan stood behind Clad and asked, "Your Highness, what are you thinking about?" Immediately, Clad impatiently asked, "What? Why suddenly?" Yuan, upon hearing this, explained, "I asked Hina to bring a mirror." This left Clad somewhat puzzled, not understanding the reason. Yuan silently stared at Clad through the mirror. He slowly asked, "Well, aren't you very handsome?"
Clad was extremely surprised. "What?" Yuan tried to hide. "No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to judge you. I just think that now, looking at you, it's no longer uncomfortable. I want you to live like other people. Your Highness, the garden will soon be beautiful. It would be a pity to only look at it through the window." After hearing that, Clad showed a pensive expression. After a moment, he gently chided. "You are truly stubborn. I can take care of myself." Yuan simply replied, "Yes, you're not going to say I've overstepped my bounds, are you?" Scene change. Lancelot looked at the lady standing among the maids and said, "I've always noticed this. Your wife is quite comfortable with the servants." However, Clad disagreed. She shouldn't be. Lancelot added, "You used to be like that too, Sir Clad. Every time we came here, we would argue like commoners. It's fun to remember." As soon as the words left his mouth, Clad immediately asked directly, "Did you just come here to reminisce?" Lancelot continuously sighed. "What's wrong with a little reminiscing? You're so difficult."
Both continued to gaze at the perpetual smile on Yuan's lips. Lancelot subtly furrowed his brows, observing intently. Seeing this, Claude was extremely curious. What are you staring at so intently? At this, Lancelot blushed with embarrassment, pulling his hand back from the person next to him. Good heavens, isn't Eddie's worry enough? Who could look away when she shines like that? Lancelot thought to himself. Claude coldly reminded him, "Don't touch me." Lancelot then admitted, "It's just that she's always radiant, even when visiting the family tomb. It hasn't been long, so it's understandable for her to be sad." These words confused Claude, who immediately asked, "What?" Suddenly, Gustave unexpectedly entered. "Your Highness, did you call for me?" Immediately, Claude asked directly, "Where is Louise Pellies?" Claude added, "Should I be clearer? The deceased person whose face I've never seen. I'm talking about my 8th wife." Thank you for watching today's video. Our story continues with many exciting developments ahead, so don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to support us and not miss the latest episodes. We wish you relaxing and enjoyable moments. See you in the next video. Thank you for watching.